An entitled scam artist keeps using my email address for literally everything. But after dealing with this spam for so long, I finally got revenge by canceling their flights and hotels to the vacation they had planned. And honestly, I feel so great about this because thankfully all the spam finally stopped after that incident. Here's what happened. Okay, so some years ago, I started to get some weird spam to my Gmail address that I had. The address was my full name, first, middle, and last, with one of those names being spelled a little differently than the accepted way. I had this email address for years, almost as long as Gmail had accepted users without invitations. No one else could have had that particular email address, and Gmail doesn't recycle. Now, the spam started off in a manner that didn't really make me pay attention, but it began to multiply. Accounts at Starbucks, Panera, Nike, all kinds of stores started to show up. I'd get order confirmations, advertisements, and promos. Like literally all kinds of crap. I could see a name on some of them, but it wasn't mine, and it wasn't anywhere near mine. I have no idea why this person was using my email address, except that it was like someone who got a hold of a list of breached emails and just picked one to create accounts. This is also right after like a big service was compromised, and my email address was one of those. I canceled what I could and I blocked the rest, until one day when the big one finally hit. I received a note from an airline stating that a trip had been booked. This was one of those all-inclusive packages, and according to what I could see, this was booked via agent. I didn't have that agent's name, unfortunately, but I had literally everything else. Flights and hotel to some warm destination island were included. 2 tickets and prices and last names were given, which again were not mine. I had the ticket and flight numbers, the hotel confirmation codes, etc. Literally the whole thing. The only thing I didn't know was the agent's name or agency in order to call them to try and tell them to quit this crap. I called the airline and I thought to myself, okay, why not? I literally had nothing else to do at work that day, so let's just go for it. I got a hold of someone who didn't speak English as any language, and I tried to explain to them that they had my email address and please just remove it from this flight. But they said no, they couldn't do that. Please just ignore the emails. But I then said to them, I get lots of stuff related to this flight. I need it to stop. You're giving me personally identifiable information. But still, they said no, I can't do that. Well, it was then that I noticed the link at the bottom of the email. Hit this link if you want to cancel. I asked the airline rep about this, and they brightly explained to me that I could cancel, but there may be fees or other obligations in regards to that cancellation, and any trips would need to be rebooked. I again stated, this is not mine. Do you understand that I'm going to be canceling someone else's trips because you literally can't change an email? The agent started to explain once more about the cancellation procedures, but you know what? At that point, I'd already hit the cancellation link. I then received an email stating that the trip was canceled and that the money would be refunded within so many business days. I then asked the rep if it was canceled, and they said yes, and started to read to me their script of, oh, we're sorry to see you go, and I just said thank you and hung up. Well, after that, I received no more new account signups. I managed to clear all the ones that had already happened. Some of them didn't want to do anything, but when I started using the word fraudulently created, things tended to move slightly faster. Now, I honestly do not understand what was going on here. Perhaps someone was committing fraud with that trip, but if for some reason they weren't, I hope they learned to use their own email address when spending a few $1,000s on something, because if you try to use mine, your trip is probably just gonna get canceled. Oh my gosh, dude, this is hilarious to me. Like, first of all, I don't know about anyone else, but this absolutely screamed, yeah, these people are committing fraud. Like, that seems super sketchy in my opinion. And incredibly annoying. Like, dude, think about it for a second. These people were using your email address for all this crap. I guarantee you, they were either like phishing for your information, or they were trying to like use it to get away with some stuff. Like, either way, this sounds really weird, and honestly, I think I would have done the same thing. I would have canceled that trip and not even thought twice about it. Because if these people really are dumb enough to use your email address, especially for something that's probably fraudulent, then in my opinion, I think they absolutely deserve to get shut down.
If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories.
Today, I think I destroyed my relationship with my boyfriend by drawing a hard line in the sand about what I want. Because right now, he is really pissed off, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my boyfriend and I have been together for nearly 2 years, living together for one. He had purchased his house prior to us dating, and I was renting an apartment, so it made sense for me to move into his house. He continued to pay the mortgage, and I took on all the usage bills. Stuff like all the utilities and annual maintenance, as well as the grocery shopping too, and we honestly felt it was a fair split. As our anniversary is coming up, we've been talking about our future timelines and where we see our relationship progressing. We're on the same page with all the big ideas. We know we want to marry each other and start a family following that, but to be in a position to start a family, the house is going to need a lot of renovations. And we've always thrown around the idea that the cost of renovations would be my buy-in, so to say, on the house. From our estimates, everything we would want to do would be around $100,000 on the low end. We even agreed that we could draw up some kind of agreement to protect both of our interests financially. As it's gotten closer to reality of reaching reaching out to the contractors and banks, I felt more and more unsettled about the situation. I feel confident in our relationship, but foolish to be making an investment in my boyfriend's asset. I told him that I would like to be engaged before starting this process, just so I feel like he's making a commitment to me as much as I am. We've talked about being engaged prior to this, but he said adding this element makes it feel very transactional and takes away from the romance and sparkle of it all. I didn't tell him I wanted to be engaged by a specific date or anything like that, just that if this renovation is what we wanted to pursue, this is the action I'd like to take beforehand. He seemed upset by my statement, and I feel like I really have taken some of the romance and surprise out of the idea of a proposal or being engaged. The morning after this conversation was cold and tense, and I can't help but feel like I've done irreparable damage, but I don't feel wrong in making the request. So seriously, am I being reasonable? Is this recoverable at all? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, bro, why are you doing this before you're married? Seriously, this seems like a really bad idea. You're telling me he wants you to sign some kind of contract where it's like, oh yeah, we could come to some kind of agreement. You're gonna cough up $100,000 and then we can fix up my house. Like, I don't know, that's like a big red flag. This guy's like, oh, I don't want to take away from the romance. This feels transactional. And yet, in order to have a family, you need to pay $100,000 for renovations on this guy's house that you do not own. I don't know about you, but that screams sketchy in my opinion. Like, dude, what is happening right now? There's no way in the world I would ever agree to something like that, especially not in writing. Like, what the crap? And someone in the comment section said it best. People can always break engagements, but it's a lot harder to break the deed of a house, dude. So in my opinion, there's no way I would ever put a single penny into this house unless I'm on the deed. Like, that honestly sounds like a terrible idea, even under the best of circumstances, because your boyfriend's acting a little bit weird and, in my opinion, just a little bit sketchy. Am I the jerk for turning away some neighborhood kids who are lower income, who are constantly coming to my house every single day asking for work? Because after dealing with this for so long, it's honestly starting to get annoying, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I've lived in a mixed middle-class area, and a few streets over is lower income. The kids from that neighborhood will often come to my neighborhood and ask to do different jobs for cash, and I usually find something for them to do. Recently, a new older kid who's maybe like 15 years old has been coming over, and it started with asking my husband for a job, and he was told to wash our cars. My husband lent the kids our car washing stuff and paid them, and it was honestly no big deal. Well, the next day, the teenager came back and asked if he could borrow our car washing things to get jobs at other people's houses. But my husband declined, since we get expensive products and we don't just lend out anything. But this kid started coming over to our house daily, asking for work, and my husband had to turn him down each time because we are literally not made of money. Now, I felt really bad for the kid, so I got him the car washing kit they sell at the store with everything in it. I mean, seriously, who doesn't love an entrepreneur? My husband gave it to the teenager the following day, along with an extra $20, and told him to buy more products with the money when those run out. Flash forward to this week, and the teenager showed up with his two younger siblings, asking the same thing as before. Can they borrow our car washing things? I turned to the oldest boy and I asked what happened to the kit that I got him, and he was clearly embarrassed and said that he knew where the bucket was, but apparently he lost all the other stuff. Now, using it is one thing, but not taking care of a small gift is disrespectful. Well, I told him and the others I had nothing else that I could give him, and then I just closed the door. And I've even told my husband to turn them away from now on. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because right now I kind of feel terrible. Okay, no, you're definitely not the jerk. Like, honestly, I think you've done enough already, and you've given these kids a chance to like try and make some money on their own. And it sounds like at this point they're just looking for like free handouts. And that, in my opinion, is not okay. And it's like, I totally understand they're lower income and they have like no money, but the least you can do is like try to like, I don't know, take care of your stuff and not get it like lost or lose it in some way. Like at that point, that's on the 15-year-old and absolutely not on you. My boyfriend's parents excluded me from Thanksgiving and even told him that he needed to choose between them or me, putting me and our relationship in a really weird spot because right now I really don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. So my boyfriend and I have been together for about 3 years now. He invited me to spend a week in Chicago with his family for Thanksgiving, and we are based in Seattle, and I have met his parents twice, one last Thanksgiving and once when they visited us for a long weekend. I've always been polite and respectful with them, but we're not particularly close. After we booked flights, requested PTO, and we're about 2 weeks out from the trip, my boyfriend told his parents that we would be visiting, and that's when his mom got upset. She told him that he was being inconsiderate because his dad's chronic leukemia had recently gotten worse, and she didn't feel that she could host us for a full week. And this is the first time my boyfriend had heard that his dad's health had declined. I mean, his parents just didn't share any of that with him. Given their reaction, and since we can't afford a full week in Chicago hotels, my boyfriend shortened the visit to only 3 days. He also said he would only spend about a day and a half at his parents' place, place so I wouldn't be left alone in the city for that long. For context, his relationship with his parents is complicated. He experienced emotional and physical mistreatment growing up, and although he sees them occasionally, things are pretty strained. When we arrived in Chicago, I asked if he still planned to go see them on Friday, but he delayed it until Sunday because his mom had been very passive-aggressive ever since he told them that he couldn't stay for the full 3 days. He basically avoided going home because he knew it was going to be tense. On Sunday, his mom picked him up from the train station and immediately mentioned that they had another house guest staying with them, someone distantly connected through extended family, because apparently they owed him a favor. They had been cooking for this guest and making him feel at home, and my boyfriend understandably felt like this was a deliberate move to exclude me. During dinner, he tried to tell them about some of the things he'd been doing in the city to lighten the mood, and his parents just shut him down, saying that they didn't want to hear about it. He felt uncomfortable and ended up leaving early. On the drive back to the train station, his dad basically compared him to a neighbor's son who quit his job and moved home to care for his father during a health crisis. Then he told my boyfriend to break up with me because apparently we argue too much and that they don't like me, while also saying that he needs to choose between staying with me in Seattle or coming home to be with them. Now, I've mentioned many times that he doesn't need to share every argument we have with his parents, but I guess he did it anyways. And now I feel like they have a very skewed view of our relationship. We've recently moved in together and we have just been navigating normal stuff, dividing chores, getting used to each other's routines, etc. I mean, things aren't perfect, but they're definitely not what his parents seem to think, and now I'm unsure how to move forward from this. I want to be supportive given my dad's health, but I'm also struggling with feeling excluded, and I'm feeling uncertain about how future holidays or visits should look. What would be the best way for my boyfriend and I to set boundaries and navigate his family dynamics without damaging our relationship? What should I do? Okay, first off, I just want to say this really is a terrible situation to be stuck in because this legitimately doesn't sound like your fault at all. Like honestly, it sounds like your boyfriend grew up in a really terrible environment and the parents are clearly trying to continue that even into adulthood. And it's like, dude, this is just completely unfair. Like, what are we doing here? His parents are literally guilt-tripping him all because you guys are in a relationship and they're blowing things completely out of proportion since your boyfriend can't keep his mouth shut about stuff going on in your relationship, which is also not okay, by the way, in case you're wondering. So honestly, it kind of seems like this is a problem with your boyfriend more than anything else. Like, you've clearly done nothing wrong, but like your boyfriend is sharing stuff that he really shouldn't, especially with people who literally do not care about your existence. They only want to make your boyfriend's life miserable, and that is not okay in my opinion. So hopefully this works out because the way your boyfriend's parents are acting is honestly a little strange. Am I the jerk for refusing to host my family's temporary storage in my garage? Because it's been about 4 months now and their stuff is still sitting in my garage. And at this point, I'm sick of it and I really want them to leave. Here's what's going on. I'm a 29-year-old female and I bought a small house last year. And for reference, I'm the first one in my family to own anything because my parents and my older brother still rent. A few months ago, my parents asked if they could keep a couple of boxes in my garage while they cleaned out their apartment basement. And you know what? I said, sure, I'm happy to help out. Well, the next weekend, a rented van shows up and suddenly my driveway is full of boxes, old furniture, random bags of clothing, and even a broken treadmill. My dad said it would just be like 2 weeks, but that was 4 months ago. I've asked him a few times when they're moving their stuff, and there's always some excuse. They're too busy, there's the landlord, the weather, whatever might be going on. And it's like, I can't park my car inside, I trip over their boxes doing laundry, and I'm not even kidding you, a mouse literally ran out of one of the bags last week. When I told them they need to move everything by the end of next month or I'm gonna hire a junk removal company, my mom started crying and said that I turned cold since buying a house and that families should be willing to share space. My brother then called me selfish and said that I don't understand how hard it is to raise kids in a rental. But from my point of view, they're just using my garage as a free storage unit with no end date, and that honestly just doesn't seem fair. So seriously, am I the jerk for telling them to get their crap and get out? Because right now, I feel like I'm at the end of my rope and I really just don't know what to do. Okay, dude, you are absolutely not the jerk. These people are definitely taking advantage of you. Anytime anyone's trying to be like, oh, you just don't know how hard it is. You need to help family out. You have a house and that means we get to share your space. It's like, dude, what are we talking about right now? Like, bro, this is not your property. This is my property. Since when do you have any say over it? Like, what are we talking about? And I've got to give it to the original poster here. Dude, you are way more patient than I am. 4 months? Like, you waited 4 months? Like, my God, I would have waited 1 month tops and then been like, okay, I'm going to put your stuff on the curb and I really hope you get it. Because holy crap, these people have junk all over over the place. And I think initially you were probably thinking like, okay, it's probably not that much. There's probably only like a couple of boxes I need to deal with. It's probably not that much. But then here they are taking all their crap and throwing it in your garage. So now you can't even use your garage. Your car's not going in there. Your own storage is not going in there. Like literally they've hijacked it and said, okay, job's done. So no, it's time for them to move out. Like literally, unless they're going to start paying you, which even then I would be hesitant. Like honestly, it's time for them to move because their attitude is weird and their entitlement is absolutely uncalled for. Am I the jerk for snapping back at my relatives who openly mock me about my unemployment and now end up calling me arrogant when I don't laugh at their jokes anymore? Because right now this is causing a lot of stress for my elderly parents, and at this point I just don't know how to handle this. Here's what's going on. I'm a 24-year-old male and I'm an app developer. After 2 startups that I worked at ended up shutting down due to funding issues, I was jobless for a few months this year. Every family gathering, my relatives openly taunt me by saying, "Why are you working at startups? When will you do a proper job?" And for them, a proper job is when you work at a multinational corporation. They also kept telling my parents to force me to get a master's degree or a government job even though they know nothing about tech. They also taunted my parents behind my back saying that he doesn't have work and how are you going to buy a new house and all that stuff. And for reference, my dad is retiring soon, so my parents are stressed and vulnerable. Well, I now have a stable job again, and at family events when the same relatives make their usual jokes about my career, I give very short, sharp replies. But when I do this, they get offended and complain to my parents that I've become rude and arrogant. My parents scold me lately saying that I should just laugh it off or I need to stay quiet because they're elders and that I'm creating unnecessary tension in the family. I feel I'm just refusing to be their punching bag anymore, but my parents think I'm being disrespectful and that I should keep the peace even if the jokes are at my expense. So am I the jerk for answering back instead of smiling and taking the taunts like before? Because right now I really just don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, anytime someone tries to say, oh, they're elders, you just need to like take it and just deal with it. Like that is not okay in my opinion, and honestly, there are lots of reasons why. For starters, that's just plain rude. Like seriously, why do they think they can do that? Simply because we share the same like last name? Like, dude, what are you talking about? That's not okay regardless of who you are. And secondly, anyone trying to be like, oh, just keep the peace. This is obvious evidence that they've never stood up for themselves, and so now they're expecting you to do the same thing, even though you literally have every right to defend your name and like the weird things they're saying about you. Not to mention the fact that these are not jokes. Like this is not a shared experience. You're not laughing together at what they're saying. It's just them being nasty and being like, oh, why are you getting upset? I'm just joking around. But it's like, no, you really mean that and you're just saying that you're joking to try and get away with it. So no, I would absolutely shut that down every time if I was in your shoes, especially when it comes to like your career and your life, because they have no business making those comments, and I think shutting it down will absolutely mitigate that in the future. Would I be the jerk for not contributing to my sister's rent simply because I moved out and I no longer live with her anymore? Because she's saying that now she can't even afford to live in our old place, and now she's expecting me to pay money towards it until she can figure things out. And at this point, I'm honestly really frustrated and I'm not sure what to do. Here's what's happening. Okay, so a few years ago, I moved to Boston for grad school. Since my sister lives there too, and my university gave me a studio apartment that I can pay with student loans, she secretly stayed in this apartment with me for free until the end of my grad program. Independent of that, she also owes me about $15,000, which is over the span of several years, because she didn't make enough money to cover her rent while in medical school. And I feel like this context is important to understand why I think I'm not in the wrong. Once I graduated, we needed to get a new apartment, and my sister purposefully went for a 2-bedroom fancy high-rise that was near the hospital that she works at that I could technically afford with my meager salary, even though it would be not by much. But still, we signed the lease in May 2024 and lived there for a year, splitting the rent so I would pay an eye-watering $2,700 a month. When May of 2025 came up and we needed to renew the lease, I did it without thinking. However, I was really homesick and I was not happy with my life. My job was brutal, I missed my friends and family back home, and I hated how absolutely expensive everything is in Boston. When I went to visit my parents in August, they were like, oh, just move back here and have your sister move to a smaller apartment in the same high-rise, and you could just pay the transfer fee and all this other stuff. Well, that's exactly what I did. I got a job here that I like, I moved all my stuff, and I even paid my half of the rent for a couple more months to give my sister time to move out. Well, she, however, was absolutely furious. Living by herself in a 1-bedroom means that she'll have to pay more for her rent, and despite making twice my salary as a doctor in a highly prestigious hospital, she has no money saved up. My sister is pretty bougie and loves to buy expensive stuff, so it's not surprising, but also it's frustrating how we paid the same rent for over a year. She makes literally twice the amount that I do, and yet I somehow have more more money saved up than she does. She's also very picky about roommates, and originally she wanted me to find a new roommate to share the lease with, but I haven't been too successful there. Well, my sister proposed that since she has to pay an extra $500 a month because of me moving, she says that I should have to contribute that money to her rent until the time our lease would have originally ended, which would be until May of 2026. I believe that after years of giving her free housing and thousands of dollars, I should be completely off the hook. At the very least, let those $500 a month come out of the money that she borrowed from me years ago and couldn't afford to pay back. On the one hand, I feel bad for her, but on the other hand, I'm tired of someone who makes way more than I do financially relying on me for no good reason. What should I do? Okay, first off, no, you would not be the jerk for not paying this. Your sister's being lazy and this is not your problem. Like, yeah, she lives in a high rise and she has to pay all this money towards rent. And I'm willing to bet you didn't just get up and leave all of a sudden. Like, you probably gave her some kind of notice and said, hey, okay, I'm leaving, I gotta go. See you later. Time for you to find a new roommate. Plus, you've also tried to help her find somebody, but she's way too picky. So at that point, it's almost like, okay, dude, well, this is completely on you. Because you've moved out, you've moved on with your life, you move back home, and you're somewhere that you enjoy. So for her to ask more money out of you is just crazy to me. Because guess what? You really are off the hook. You do not have to give her a single cent. Like, this is not your problem in the slightest. Especially when we're talking about someone who literally makes twice as much as you do. Like, holy crap, she basically wants you to fund her lifestyle while not making any changes to budget or save money herself. So no, you would not be the jerk if you chose not to contribute to this crap. Because in my opinion, I think your sister's being very selfish and she's asking way too much out of you. An entitled Karen loses her mind at a clearance sale as this store that's closing down doesn't have the product for the $3 hand cream that she's desperately searching for. As a result, this entitled Karen even got kicked out as she started screaming at everybody in the store, all because she wasn't getting what she wanted. And I'm seriously still blown away by her attitude. Here's what happened. A popular cosmetics store is closing in my country. I went in yesterday after hearing of the closure to stock up on some hypoallergenic items, not knowing that they were already running their clear out sale, making everything 75% off. And to say the store was picked over was an understatement. I mean, it was nearly empty. I was lucky that they still had an inventory on exactly what I wanted. When I got to the front of a very long queue, a wild Karen appears out of nowhere, cutting in front of the line that had no less than 10 people deep. She demands that they look in the back for a rose-scented hand cream that she was unable to find on the sales floor. The woman at the counter assured her that all the inventory they had was out on the floor, and that if she was unable to find the item, then they were probably sold out of it. A normal person, by the way, would accept that a store with mostly empty shelves probably does not have the inventory to fill those shelves. But not this Karen. She understood the words "we don't have it" to be the start of the conversation. The associate called out next, and as I approached the counter, Karen held out her arm to block me and said, "I'm not done yet." Karen is insistent that they find her item and will not take no for an answer. She continues to badger the employee, pulling out winning lines such as, "It's the only item I can use. You had it yesterday. I've been a customer for years. I mean, this is the third store I've been to." And then the employee with each statement just reiterates that what you see is what we have. Still not satisfied though, the Karen of course asked for a manager, refusing to move until the manager appeared. At this point, I decided to speak up. I said to her, "Could you please step aside while you wait so the line can progress?" But this question was met with her rudely telling me to mind my own effing business. Now, I've done my time in retail, and I live for the moment that somebody pulls out the F-bomb. And I'm sure that the associate, having had enough themselves, was also happy to ask at this point that she leave the store immediately for being rude to other customers. Unfortunately though, a Karen only has one mode, and that is to escalate. I have now committed the cardinal sin of making a reasonable request of a Karen, and have inadvertently made myself a target as well. She then turns back to me and starts yelling. She says, "See what you've done? I'm just trying to get some help here. Now they're throwing me out because you couldn't keep your mouth shut. If this was somebody in trouble, you would probably mind your own business, but no, you have to be a jerk because I'm just trying to get some service." A few of the customers in line join in calling her a Karen and noting that she was in fact the one who was unable to keep her mouth shut. Well, this only encouraged her to champion for her right to rose-scented hand cream. She then began to berate every customer who dared question question her approach to the situation. Everybody is a jerk, everybody needs to shut up, and we just didn't understand customer service. Finally, the manager appears with a full bin of reaming hand cream. They had no less than 5 other varieties, but just no rose-scented ones that this idiot was looking for. The manager is offering an alternative from what limited stock they had in a futile attempt to de-escalate. However, Karens just don't understand de-escalation. I mean, this lady is already shaking mad over $3 hand cream and proceeds to call the manager stupid for not understanding rose, and then helpfully spells out the word. The manager then says, well, we're out of stock, noting that she had offered alternatives and that if none are suitable, then there is no further assistance that can be provided. She tucks the bin under the counter and then says to the Karen, if there is nothing else that we can help you with today, then you need to leave before we're forced to make you leave. Finally, accepting defeat, this entitled Karen leaves the store, but not before knocking several products off a display table on her way out. Now, I use their hand cream and it's pretty good. I prefer the vanilla scented, as the rose scent smells almost as awful as this Karen's attitude. Yeah, I can't understand why anybody would act like that in public. Like, the secondhand cringe and embarrassment that I would feel if I saw this in person would be literally off the charts. How can anybody actually act like this in public and not feel any shame? Like, you're not ashamed that you're acting this way at all in public in front of other people? I just can't imagine being that far detached from reality to act like this and not feel like some kind of regret later on or like in the moment. So I think the original poster and the manager handled this really well, and I think that Karen should have been kicked out a lot sooner than that, because her behavior and the way she was acting was so uncalled for, and no one in that store deserved to be treated like that in the slightest.
If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories.
Am I the jerk for refusing to stay at my boyfriend's hotel on my girls' trip? Because right now I am very frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. So I need to start off with a little bit of backstory just to give some context. So me and my girlfriends are planning to go to London at the end of April because one of the girls has a birthday, and for that case we decided to go to London since she always wanted to go there. We have been planning this trip since December of 2023, and I made sure to inform my boyfriend of the trip and he said it was fine. I even informed him that we might stay at a friend's place since hotels in London are a bit pricey, or we might just stay at a hotel, but it all depends on how we feel. Well, fast forward to this month, and me and my friends were on FaceTime trying to decide which hotel to reserve for the trip, and we decided on the hotel, but we were still considering staying at a friend's place still. I told my boyfriend all of this, and that's when he told me that he was also going to London with a friend of his, but he doesn't want to sleep in the same hotel room as his friend, which I fully understood, and he went ahead and asked me to reserve a hotel room for him as well, and I accepted, but I reminded him that me and the girls weren't sure if we're going to stay in a hotel, and just like I mentioned, they are pricey, and we are traveling on a budget, so staying at a friend's place is going to save us a lot of money, but we reserved a hotel just in case of anything. I then asked him which dates he was going to London, and he mentioned the same dates as me, but I just didn't think anything of it because it was just such a coincidence. He then told me that he wants me to stay with him at his hotel during my girls' trip since we are a couple, which I understand, but like I mentioned from the start, this is a trip that I planned with my girl since December, and it would be rude of me to tell them, hey, I'm going to stay with my boyfriend at his hotel during our trip, even though we planned everything together. But he said that during the day I could go and hang out with my friends, and then at night I could go to his hotel to sleep, and he thinks it doesn't make any sense for us as a couple to fly out in the same city and not stay at the same place. Well, I said no because he was not part of my plan since the beginning, and I can't just start changing everything just because he feels like he wants to go to London on those exact dates. So honestly, am I the jerk for turning him down? Because right now I seriously don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, and I think it's a really big red flag that your boyfriend is suddenly going on this trip with you. Like, this guy is acting like you both planned this together and that's why you need to stay in the hotel with him, but it's like, seriously, you weren't even invited on this. It's almost like he invited himself for some like weird reason. And also, like, why would he go to this trip all of a sudden? Does he just like not trust you or something like that? And now he's trying to force you to stay in the hotel with him? Like, that's just really weird. And I know if I was in your shoes, I wouldn't want to stay at his hotel either. Like, you planned this with your girlfriends literally a year ago. You have everything plotted out and planned exactly the way you guys want to do it, and then suddenly here comes your boyfriend out of nowhere, by the way, just to tag along on a trip that you're going on with your girlfriends. Like, come on, what's going on right now? So no, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk for refusing to stay with with your boyfriend. I think under normal circumstances where you guys like planned a vacation, this would be much different and understandable if you did stay with him. But in the meantime, I find this behavior really weird because it really seems like he's trying to ruin your plans. Am I the jerk for telling my sister that she was being very obvious when trying to hide the fact that she was pregnant? Because right now she's trying to blame me for everybody finding out. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my sister is currently 3 months pregnant with twins, and she's already begun to develop a bump. Right now, she's only told myself, our parents, and our brother, as well as giving myself and our brother permission to tell our spouses. And we have all agreed to keep it a secret until she's ready. Well, the issue is that she's become very obvious about it, to the point where she's doing near comical things to hide it when we're around family, which has been very frequent as of late. I mean, picture the stuff that people do in sitcoms when the characters aren't pregnant but the actor is. She will cover her stomach with her purse, holding her oldest daughter in front of the bump, wearing much baggier clothes when she's typically the type to wear things that show off her figure, stuff like that. My sister's always been very fit as she is a gym rat. The bump itself doesn't even look like extra fat or anything like that, but rather it just looks like a very pronounced baby bump. If ever she has to move something from her stomach, she is very quick to hide it. So obviously many have caught on, but for the most part they all were good sports. No one ever directly asked us, but they would make hints, and I would never entertain them at all. We all gathered on Sunday for a family dinner, and my sister was holding her 2-year-old for a bit. When the little one wanted to go play, Amber then tried to cover herself with a blanket. My 30-year-old cousin then chimed in and said, "Alright, cut the dramatics. We all know what's going on." A few instantly reprimanded my cousin, while my sister turned bright red. She refused to say anything in the moment, though later quietly confirmed to our aunt, telling her to spread it around. My sister is now very upset. I agree that our cousin was obnoxious and shouldn't have said anything, but I've also tried to be supportive and comforting. However, my sister keeps saying, "I just don't know how they figured it out." And eventually, after hearing this over and over again, I finally said, "Sweetie, you really weren't trying hard. I respect why you wanted to wait, but by this point, it was quite obvious." Well, she got mad and tried to insist that it wasn't obvious. I said it absolutely was, and she didn't help matters by acting like she was in a sitcom. I stressed that our cousin was in the wrong, but she was also not quite as stealthy as she thought she was. Now, I was not saying that she should have done more to hide it, and I also don't think that she was wrong to hide it. But what I am saying is that the sentiment of, "Oh, I don't know how they figured it out," doesn't really work when she was being so obvious. Well, now she's mad at me and says I'm victim blaming, but I said I'm absolutely not. No one should have said anything. But she was being very obvious, and she really shouldn't pretend otherwise. So I really need to know if I was the jerk here, because at this point, I'm seriously not sure. No, you're definitely not the jerk. Your sister was being weird, and she's trying to claim that she's a victim of some kind. Like, no, this isn't victim blaming. What is she talking about? She's not a victim just because she got called out by her cousin for hiding her baby bump in such a dramatic way. Like, she was very clearly making it obvious that she was hiding something, so for her to suddenly act surprised like, "Oh my god, how did this happen? How did anybody figure out this mystery?" is not only hilariously naive, but also it's just really dumb, because seriously, you didn't do a good job of like not convincing people that you're pregnant. And you know what? I'm right there with everybody else. The fact that the cousin called her out at dinner was completely inappropriate. Like, that's a private conversation to be had on the side, because clearly your sister was not ready to share this with anybody. So I can understand where she's coming from in that regard, where she's probably like really embarrassed, and she probably feels really stupid for hiding it and thinking that she's hiding it in some kind of way, but like literally she should have known that she was being super obvious. So in my opinion, this is not your fault. You're not victim blaming because your sister is not a victim, and in my opinion, she's probably way more embarrassed than anything else. And that honestly is kind of her own fault, especially with how badly she was trying to hide the fact that she was pregnant. My entitled, stupid boss demands that we work overtime hours with literally zero work to do at the end of the day. So I decide to maliciously comply, resulting in him never asking me to stay late ever again. Here's what happened. So this happened a while back, but the memory still brings a smile to my face whenever I think about it. I used to work for a company where the boss had this habit of demanding that we stay late, even when there was absolutely no work left to be done in the office. It was one of those toxic environments where productivity was measured by hours you spent at your desk, rather than the actual output of your work. One day, after wrapping up all my tasks well before the end of the day, my boss came over and told me that I needed to stay late because that's just how things are done around here. Mind you, there was literally nothing left for me to do. Now, instead of arguing or trying to reason with him, I decided to play along with his boss's ridiculous demand for overtime pay. So I nodded, I grabbed a book I had been meaning to read, and settled back into the chair. For the next 2 hours, I sat at my desk, flipping through pages, occasionally pretending to jot down notes and looking as busy as possible. At the end of those 2 hours, my boss came by to check on me, expecting to see me toiling away at some imaginary task, but instead he found me reading a novel. He looked at me puzzled and asked, "What are you doing?" With a straight face, I replied, "Well, you asked me to stay late, so I figured I might as well put in some overtime." This book has been on my reading list for quite a while. Needless to say, my boss was speechless. He couldn't really argue with me since he asked me to stay late and I was technically still on the clock. Well, from that day forward, he never asked me to stay late unless there was actual work that needed to be done, marking this as one of the few instances where malicious compliance was actually working at its finest. Yeah, that boss is really stupid for trying to make you stay late, because I am right there with the original poster. If there's no work to be done and you've done everything you need to do for the day, then there really is no point for you to stick around and have to work more just to make this guy happy. Like, at that point, it's just a massive waste of money for everybody involved, and it's a waste of time. Like, if they really want to pay me for staying late and actually doing work, then fantastic, let's get that done. But to make me sit there just for the sake of sitting there, and this is all probably for some secret agenda that your manager's trying to work towards, is just so cumbersome and weird, and it just doesn't help anybody in the long run. So honestly, I'm kind of sad that you got caught, because you could have gotten in some serious reading time on the clock. Because if this manager was really so stupid as to allow you to commit time theft, and with overtime hours at that, then it would have been great for you to capitalize on that for as long as possible. Today, I had my first worst day that I've ever had while working at this restaurant, and it honestly got so bad that it made me cry in front of my coworkers. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. I'm an 18-year-old female, and I've been a hostess at this restaurant for about 4 months now, and today was my first real serving day after 5 days of training. It was going great at first. We had some very sweet customers, but then I got sat 2 women who I could tell already were not happy. I was still able to keep up with my tables until the 2 women started complaining that their appetizer was cold. They also wanted a different one instead, and they wanted to add food. I had just gotten sat again, so it was starting to stress me out, and I began making some mistakes. Well, long story short, I forgot to shake up their margarita, so they assumed it was wrong, and that's my fault. And I forgot to tell them if they got 2 sides, one of the regular sides with their food would be replaced. So they had ordered 3 sides each, and only 2 came out. The first woman got incredibly upset and asked for a manager. She apparently talked a ton of garbage about me, so much so that my coworkers brought it up to me. As I was walking in the back, I heard my manager say, "I mean, bless her heart." And she was saying this to my coworker about me, so she must know that I'm doing badly. The main woman didn't end up tipping, which is fine, but the second one did tip about 22% and decided to write me a note. She said to me, "Don't be so stressed, you will do great," which immediately made me cry. So I'm sobbing as I'm still trying to take orders out, but my coworkers were so sweet and they kept trying to help, which made it impossible for me to stop crying because I felt so bad that they had to pick up my slack. I usually am not emotional. I mean, I haven't cried in months. So of course, it's in front of the people I have to see every single day. One of them even stayed behind to help me with my first closing, which added to the guilt that I felt. I caused them all to be behind because of me, and I'm sure my other tables suffered as well because I couldn't stay calm. It wasn't the worst day ever. I mean, it definitely could have been a lot worse, but I just feel like I'm horrible at my job. I just expected my day to have gone better, and crying in front of people that I'm not close with didn't help. It wasn't even like I got a crazy amount of customers. I had 3 table sections in total, and the most amount of people that I had sat at a table was maybe 4. So there wasn't even a good reason for me to be so stressed out. But I'm honestly so embarrassed that I cried in front of my coworkers that I now seriously don't know what to do. Okay, I'm gonna be real with you. If I had $1 for every time I walked away from work stressed or wanting to cry, especially when I was working in the restaurant industry, then trust me, I would be very rich. I don't care what anybody says, that line of work is incredibly stressful. Working in customer service, especially in the restaurant industry, is so stressful. There is so much that can go wrong so quickly. It is high pace, and chances are you're not going to be paid well. There are some exceptions to that rule, but honestly, the amount of work you put into that job doesn't always add up to a really good paycheck. If anything, it just adds up to you being stressed out of your mind. So I know if I was in your shoes, I would cut yourself some slack, especially when this is your first test in becoming a server. Like, you're gonna have those customers that come in and treat you like garbage, but I know whenever that happened to me, I would just remind myself that those people do not define my existence. They're just some miserable person who came in and decided to try and make you miserable. And you shouldn't let that define your work as a server, because at the end of the day, I'm sure you did just fine with every other table that you've ever served. And if you stick with it, I guarantee you these incidents will become much less in the future. My parents won't take ownership over their mistreatment of my wife. And after dealing with this for so long, I feel like I'm now at a crossroads and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my wife and I are in our 40s and we've been married for 20 years. We have one early teen son, and we recently moved back to my hometown about 2 miles from my parents. My wife has basically tolerated their behavior for years. They just seem to not like her at all. They interrupt when she speaks, they argue about small things that she says, they make comments about her under their breath, and manipulate to see their grandson. I've admittedly done a horrible job at standing up for her and confronting them, and instead, I just put my head in the sand. And that bad strategy is coming back to bite me now that they live nearby. Last Thanksgiving, my mom told my wife not to bother making food, because apparently nobody in her family likes what she makes, insinuating that my wife is not part of the family. My wife then did not come to any holidays, and my mom left on a 2-month vacation without resolving it, and now does nothing more but deflect and excuse her behavior. Instead of apologizing, she will send my wife occasional text messages saying that we need to talk, and then she'll get mad when my wife doesn't respond. At the same time, I realized how unhappy my wife was, and how I actually treat her in some of the same ways, all because of what was modeled for me. We were near divorce until I thankfully recognized this with the help of a therapist. I've changed a ton in a year, and have done the hard work of reconciling with my wife, who has been very forgiving and very gracious. But my parents still treat her the same way and just can't see it. They just think she is too sensitive, and the only person who has ever complained about the way we treat them, and that this is some mutual conflict that they should both apologize for. My mom even pulled out the old saying that the Bible says to forgive and forget, which is an old chestnut that she did last week. My mom asked to see our son every day via text message, and wants me to spend time with her and my dad like we used to, just as if nothing is wrong. I've tried confronting them and explaining the situation many times, but I have serious doubts about their desire or capacity to change. My mom last time was just like, well, I saw a counselor once who told me to text her, and she's the one that's not texting back. I could easily explain to my mom what she's doing wrong, and give her the exact script and a plan to actually apologize and repair, but that seems inauthentic and won't lead to lasting change. It's not my job to parent her, but we can't go on like this. I'm basically avoiding and ignoring them until I figure out what our relationship needs to look like, but I know that's not super mature or helpful. What should I do? Okay, first and foremost, if you really want to help out your wife, you can start by standing up for her. Like, why are you tolerating any of this behavior? If you actually changed and you're like a better husband, then you would be going to your parents and saying, hey, we're not coming over till you treat my wife right. Like, why are you not putting your foot down to be like, no, enough is enough, you're not talking to my wife like that? If this means burning bridges with your parents, in my eyes, if I was in your shoes, it would be worth it. Like, you've been with your wife for 20 years. How does she not take priority in your life? So in my opinion, I think you're being way too lazy when it comes to defending your wife, and if I was in your shoes, I would be stepping up to say something much sooner than later. An entitled crazy driver thinks he can plow his way through a construction zone, nearly driving past me as well as everybody else sitting at a stoplight, claiming that he's trying to get away from the cartel. And I've honestly never been more afraid of an interaction with a crazy person in my life. Here's what happened. So the other day I was driving down a certain road in the Bay Area where I live, and a good portion of it is a two-way road with one lane in one direction and the other lane in the opposite direction. There are double yellow lines down the middle of the road, which they've reinforced with reflective pavement markers and rumble strips. And in case you don't know, rumble strips are the grooves in the road which make a noise if your tire passes over them, and they're there to let you know that you're drifting over the yellow lines. So the message is clear: absolutely no passing other vehicles by crossing the lines. The only time you may do so is if you're specifically directed to do so by an officer, a flagger, or a sign. And this detail will be important later on. Currently, there's a major construction project that will take multiple years to complete. They started about a year ago, and they anticipate that it will be finished in 2025. This project has necessitated blocking off one of the lanes with cones, as well as reflective delineators and signs clearly indicating the line is closed. There are temporary rumble strips in the lane letting you know that you're entering a construction site, with signs that state you need to reduce your speed to 25 miles an hour. As a side note, this road is notorious for people wanting to drive fast, so they basically basically need other signs to let you know that you're entering and exiting a construction zone. Now, to save trouble of having a flagger on site, they've set up a temporary traffic light with a sign nearby saying that the wait time before it turns green will be about 6 minutes. There's also a white line indicating that you're supposed to stop. When I get to the light, I often just shift into park because I know it's going to be a while. Because one of the lanes is blocked off, when you're in that lane and you reach the part that's blocked off, you may cross over, but only when the light turns green. There's a sign directing you to cross over to the other lane, and another sign directing you to go back once you're past the construction zone. Now, I'm sharing all these details because I don't see how they could possibly make it any more clear that this is a construction zone other than having cops on site in addition to construction workers. So with that bit of context out of the way, this is where our crazy driver enters the fray, and boy do they make an incredible first impression. So I was in the lane which is blocked off, and there's one car ahead of me. We get to the light, we stop, and we wait for it to turn green. Well, suddenly this guy in a Mazda SUV comes driving down the road, sees a bunch of cars stopped, and is like, "No biggie, I'll just cross the double yellow lines and pass everybody." So he gets into the lane going in the opposite direction, passes all of us, and then, once he sees that we're all stopped and there's a construction zone and a traffic light, he tries to get back into the right lane. Only he can't now because the car in front of me is stopped behind the line. There is quite literally no room for him to squeeze past us and get back into the right lane without driving into the part of the lane that's blocked off. So he wedges his way in as best as he can, but now he's past the white line that you must stop behind, as well as the traffic light, so he isn't able to see when it changes. Obviously, we're all honking our horns as a means of asking, what in the world are you doing? So as a result, he gets out of his SUV. He's a middle-aged white guy, and I'm guessing probably in his late 50s. He then starts spewing all this garbage about how he's trying to get away from the cartel and how he's gonna drive like crazy in order to do so. He also mentioned some garbage about having to get to the doctor. I don't remember exactly what he said, but it went from feeling like the guy was an entitled jerk to actually being kind of scared. We were all like, dude, you're gonna like hurt someone if you do that. And he responded that he was the one who was going to get hurt due to the cartel supposedly being after him. He then asked when he could go, and we told him when the light turned green. Now remember, he's not able to see the light because he's past the line where you have to stop. The woman in front of me gets back into her car and moves back a few feet, and I do the same in order to give the guy enough room to back in enough so he can see what color the light is. Now I was very afraid that he was going to hurt somebody due to him saying that he's gonna drive like crazy in order to escape whoever supposedly was after him, not to mention him trying to get to the doctor. Eventually the light turned green and we carefully made our way onto the opposite lane past all the construction and then got back into the right lane. I was still really afraid he was going to do what he said he was gonna do, as he was going pretty fast. Luckily he wound up behind another SUV driver who was actually going the speed limit, and thankfully he stayed in the lane and didn't pass him. And in my opinion, people like this absolutely shouldn't be on the road. Yeah, that's a crazy situation. Like the second he stepped out of his car after people were honking at him, that's like the immediate first red flag where I'm like, wait a second, this seems really sketchy. And also, like, based on all the signs that you described, why on earth could this guy not like infer that, yeah, this is a construction site and I need to wait my turn at the obvious stoplight? Like seriously, there's no good excuse for this guy. But hey, maybe he really was on the run from the cartel. And if that really is true, even though I think that's a complete lie, then this guy has clearly been running with the wrong group of people.
If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories.
I recently got fired from my hosting job as my managers were claiming that I was being too inconsistent. And now that I have a new job, I'm stressed out of my mind that I'm just gonna get fired again. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I worked at this place for 6 months, and the day before I got fired, I was in a heated argument with my boyfriend and was already 15 minutes late to work. It was my first time ever being late, and my one mistake was that I didn't call one of my managers to tell her that I was going to be late. I was too in my head to think about anything other than getting to work and the argument. Then I got into a car accident on my way there. I ended up being 30 minutes late to work. I was crying, I was shaking, and I was terrified because my father was behaving erratically after dropping me off. I told one of the managers what happened, and she told me to go home because I was in no condition to work and to not worry about it. Well, the next day, I received a text from my general manager that he is letting me go due to too many inconsistencies during my shifts. Mind you, I got confirmation from my coworkers that both managers were complaining on how bad I was at my job. I mean, they complained about everything all day, specifically the salary manager. She would nitpick the littlest things, even though I have little interactions with customers. And again, mind you, I also worked as a busser and would help bussers take plates in and wipe tables, and they heavily appreciated my work. I did my best to stay at the host stand, but I couldn't just watch the bussers drown by themselves, and then management, other hosts, and even servers would complain at them when they do a lot of heavy and time-consuming work. I would also pre-bus for the servers when it got busy. I also voluntarily cleaned off the floors of the front house. Now, I love cleaning and I hate seeing cheese and other crumbs on the floor, and a lot of servers thank me since it's mainly servers cleaning front of house and they leave late. I never got complaints from servers other than a rare and occasional gentle reminder that they would like to be next sat, and depending on how many tables each server had, I would go by whoever needs tables the most and try to keep it even. I think I did exceedingly over the bare minimum, because the bare minimum that you have to do is stand at the host stand all day and greet customers and then sit them down. Then when the shift ends, you wipe windows and menus and clean the floor of your section. Some hosts don't even sanitize the menus, and when I'm given greasy menus, I'm absolutely horrified. I brush it off, but I was praised by servers and bussers for doing my job exceedingly well. If I'm being honest about how I seat people, it can be bad when it's packed, and we have a bit of reservations with parties of 8 or more, only because we're a very tiny restaurant, but we are a popular one. I mean, it is just messing with my head how management complains when all I do is mind my business and help everyone as best as I can. Like, all I wanted was to help in any way, shape, or form that I can. Now, I was immediately offered a serving job at a sushi place across from my old work, and this is all after talking with their manager. And trust me, my anxiety is spiked so high because I don't want to go through what I went through this week. Also, I never release my shifts, and if the other hosts ever needed to be covered, then I would happily cover for them. I'm honestly so scared that management will all hate me and I'll just be fired again. I'm honestly so stressed out, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Honestly, it does not sound like you did anything wrong. If anything, it sounds like you did way more than you needed to at your previous job. Like, these people clearly did not appreciate your hard work, and they very obviously took advantage of your kindness by basically allowing you to do everybody else's job. And you know what? With this new job, I would just consider it exactly that. This is a new job and a new opportunity for you to try again, because it sounds like your previous managers were absolutely incompetent, and they were really rude and clearly did not appreciate you. And I think it would be in your best interest to have a clean attitude and like a fresh perspective going into this new job, because I'm sure even if these people are normal people, they will be way better than what you used to deal with. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for considering removing my sister from my life? Because after 6 years, she is still talking about her ex-boyfriend and how badly the breakup went between the two of them. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so 6 years ago, my younger sister went through a painful breakup with her long-term boyfriend. Since then, she's been using that breakup as a crutch to explain away every negative emotion that she experiences. And her fixation on the past has taken a toll on our relationship. My younger sister's breakup hit her hard, and I was there for her every step of the way. I listened to her vent, I wiped away her tears, and offered whatever support that I could. But instead of healing and moving on, my sister has clung to her past relationship as an excuse for her unhappiness. Nowadays, it seems like every time my sister's in a bad mood or feeling down, she just blames it on her breakup. She snaps at me over the smallest things, accusing me of not understanding her pain or reminding her too much of her ex-boyfriend. It's unfair to me, but my sister just can't seem to let go of the past. Even when things are going well in her life, my sister finds a way to tie it back to her breakup. She's become obsessed with her ex, stalking his social media profiles, and driving herself crazy with jealousy over his new relationships. But what really takes the cake is my sister's behavior towards my husband. She's convinced that he reminds her too much of her ex-boyfriend, and she's demanded that he not attend family gatherings. It's absurd and hurtful, not only to me, but to my husband as well. I am beyond angry at my sister for her selfishness and inability to move on from a breakup that literally happened 6 years ago. Her obsession is driving a wedge between us and causing unnecessary drama within our family. So honestly, am I the jerk for considering removing her from my life? Because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Wow, it has been 6 years and she is still holding on to this? My God, this is not healthy. No, you are definitely not the jerk for putting distance between you and your sister because your sister is not being rational. Like, here's the thing. She needs to take time to like fix herself first instead of taking that out on everybody else. And honestly, the final straw for me would have been her talking about your husband like that. Like, that is unbelievably toxic and that is not okay. Everything else for me, I can kind of excuse and be like, okay, whatever. But the fact that she targeted your husband and went after him and is seriously trying to be like, you can't come to family gatherings. You remind me of my ex-boyfriend. Like, that's crazy talk and that is not a rational person. And I get it. I would be insanely angry if someone said that about my significant other. Like, just because somebody looks like someone that you don't like doesn't mean they are that person. Like, that's crazy talk. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. Your sister is so far out of line, it's not even funny. And I don't blame you for wanting to get away from her sooner than later. Am I the jerk for being unhappy at my job as I work for my older cousin who is awful at her job and is constantly forgetting things left and right? Because right now I am seriously unhappy. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I started working for my cousin as a receptionist for her business. And for the sake of keeping this anonymous, I won't explain exactly what it is. My initial job was just to answer phones and make appointments. And my pay reflected just that. As time went on, she began piling more and more on my plate, expecting me to be able to do things that keep her business afloat, but still not giving me the power to make any decisions. This wouldn't be a huge issue if she wasn't always out of the office and ignoring my calls and messages. My cousin claims to have poor memory, and so I will have to remind her dozens of times to meet with potential clients and to work up rough drafts for jobs. People will pay a consultation fee and then have to wait weeks for her to remember to actually begin the work. Unfortunately for me, being the receptionist, I'm the one having to handle the irate clients who will no longer make deadlines. As expected, her business has slowed significantly, and she seems to believe it is my fault. She has begun leaving passive-aggressive notes to make sure I'm taking calls and petty checklists for me to mark off daily. She has also decided that since we aren't that busy, I should be deep cleaning the office daily to earn my pay. I've mentioned leaving and finding a new job since we're not that busy, and I don't have class over the summer, but she said she wants me to stay working with her and that she needs my help. My mom also said that she's family, and I can't leave her in a bind when she's struggling like this. Recently, however, instead of one page with multiple notes, she has begun to write them individually and then places some in my area and some in hers. She then will berate me if I miss a single one, especially if it involves a client or a job. I'd always ask her to please put them all on my desk, and she would make comments about me wanting her to do my job for me. So last week I had enough, and anytime she started on her tirade, instead of trying to defend myself, I'd stare blankly at her and ask if she had started this job or called this client yet, even though I knew that she hadn't. And every time it had the desired effect, and she would leave without finishing the conversation. This has apparently upset her a lot because she then started raging to her mother, who is my aunt, who then complained to my parents about it. My dad thinks it's hilarious, but my mom and aunt think that I should just stop because I'm being petty when I know she's stressed out. So honestly, am I the jerk here? What should I do? Okay, I've got to be honest with you. I don't know why you're even still working there. I personally don't care that this is your cousin or anybody that you're related to at all. The fact that she's piling more stuff for you to do and not letting your pay reflect that, in my opinion, is so toxic and you don't need that. Not to mention the fact that she's clearly not appreciating the work you put in and she just completely mistreats you in the workspace. Also, the fact that your family's like, ooh, you can't put family in a bind. You have to help out family when they're in need. That, in my opinion, is just a cop-out for someone to continue to be awful to you. Like, you can't just use that as a license to then treat you like garbage whenever she wants. I don't care how stressed out she is. She's about to be more stressed out when you quit your job and go somewhere else. Also, she doesn't keep anything private. If she wants to sit there and pretend like she's your boss, then she should exercise some semblance of professionalism. I mean, the first thing she does whenever there's a conflict with you is go to her mom and start complaining about it. Like, that's really unprofessional and it's seriously not okay. Like, your cousin is taking advantage of you and your family is literally enabling her behavior. It's not your responsibility to keep her business afloat. That's on her. Like, she's not doing her job and you are literally picking up the slack. So I know if I was in your shoes, I would be finding a new job like tonight. I would not want to stay in a workplace like this and be expected to literally carry this business across the finish line every single day. Because honestly, that's exactly what's happening right now. And in my opinion, I don't think you deserve that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for ditching my cousin and her family on a cruise? Also, we could avoid their obnoxious obnoxious children who throw temper tantrums at the drop of a hat, because right now she is very angry with me, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my husband and I decided to take our kids on a cruise for spring break. When my cousin heard about it, her and her husband decided to book the same one with their kids. So essentially, they kind of crashed our trip. We were very hesitant to go with them, but we couldn't exactly forbid them from going either. My cousins and I are actually super close. I mean, we grew up like sisters, and I try very hard to stay close with them. The issue is that our kids are very badly behaved. My kids can enjoy them in small doses, as can we, but trying to do more than a few hours at a time with them is difficult. She has a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old and a toddler. They throw long and loud tantrums until they do get their way. They also need 24/7 entertainment or they go crazy. If they're bored for even a minute, they start crying and complaining, and my cousin and her husband have to stop what they're doing and start entertaining them just to stop the tantrum. And obviously, this is 100% on the parents. We've never done a trip together like this, and we weren't sure how her kids could handle it, but we agreed to sit with them for dinner and do the same shows as them and all this other stuff. Now, if you've never been on a cruise, they seat you at the same table every night with the same people. Well, this proved to be a mistake after the first night. They were terrible at dinner. They drew on the walls with their crayons. They purposefully crumbled bread to make a mess. They used their knives to cut up straws and other things. They also kept running around and disturbing other tables. Their parents, of course, did nothing to stop them and instead just let them do whatever they want. Eventually, they got tired of that and started crying and screaming that they were bored and they wanted to go to the shops. They allowed them to throw a 5-minute screaming tantrum before their dad finally took them to the shops to buy some toys that they wanted. Then after dinner, we went to a show and they didn't enjoy the show and also whined loudly that they were bored. It was bad enough that we were asked to leave the show. Technically, my husband and I could have stayed with our kids, but we were just too embarrassed. My kids were upset and said they ruined the show for them. So my husband and I made the decision to ask for a different table for the rest of the trip and chose different activities to do. I told my cousin that we decided it would be best to separate at dinner and not do all activities together, but we could still hang out at the pool together and do a few activities together as well. Now, when I said that, she was pretty upset, and she said her kids got their feelings hurt that we abandoned them and that they weren't going to enjoy their trip anymore, being separated from their cousins, and she wouldn't even talk to us for the rest of the trip. We are back home now, and I got some calls from my grandparents asking why we ditched her and how we could do that to them. My sister said that we should have known this was going to happen and set the expectation for separate things ahead of time instead of dropping it on them during the cruise. So honestly, am I the jerk here? Because I seriously am not sure what to do. No, you are definitely not the jerk. Like, your cousin and her husband are terrible parents because they clearly enable this behavior left and right. Like, that is so obnoxious, it's not even funny. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would feel the exact same way. Like, of course you plan to do all these things with them, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, maybe they'll be good on this trip. Maybe because you're on a cruise and it's outside of their normal element, these spoiled kids won't act like absolute nightmares and ruin the trip for everybody. So that's why you made all these plans together. But clearly, that just isn't the case. Like, the parents just let these kids run around at dinner, and then they allow them to make all that noise during a show. Like, if I was in your shoes, I would be cutting ties with them during the cruise altogether. Not to mention the fact that they crashed your trip. I mean, if anything, this is just a lesson to anybody listening that if you have plans and you plan on going on a vacation, just keep a lid on it until like the day before or something like that. That way, people you don't want to be there can't show up all of a sudden. And you know what? The fact that your cousin's like, wow, you should have set expectations for us. You did this all of a sudden during the cruise and now we had to drop all our plans. But like, seriously, that argument goes the other way as well. Why would you drop your kids all of a sudden in this environment if you knew that they were going to misbehave? So no, you are definitely not the jerk, because these people have no right to try and ruin your vacation. My entitled in-laws are demanding that we give up our home so that my sister-in-law and her family can move in after she got a divorce. And now, after we told them that we're not going to do that, they've started calling us greedy and selfish, claiming that we don't care about the kids and that we're going to be the reason that they end up homeless. And right now, I feel like I'm at a crossroads and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened 2 nights ago and I'm still feeling some type of way about it. For some background, my husband has a younger sister. This sister-in-law is currently going through a divorce with 4 children, and my husband and I also have 4 children. My husband and I live in a very quiet country back road in our own little town, us and his family being the only residents on the road. So, both his sisters and their families and his parents live within walking distance of our house. My husband and I have been married for 7 years and have 4 young children. My husband bought the land that we live on from his parents when he was 18 years old, and when we got married, we built a house on it. We designed our house with a big family in mind and designed it to be our forever home. And trust me when I say this, there has never been a thought to move or look elsewhere. Now, my sister-in-law is going through a divorce, and she is struggling to say the least. She was in a very toxic relationship with her ex, with her contributing just as much as he was, and he was the one who filed for divorce and moved out, leaving the 4 kids with her. Well, my mother-in-law called my husband 2 nights ago and asked if we could come over for a chat. We get there and my in-laws and sister-in-law are sitting on the couch as if they were staging some kind of intervention. I mean, it was just really strange. My mother-in-law didn't beat around the bush at all. She explained how my sister-in-law's ex was getting the house in the divorce and they would be homeless within a month if we didn't give her our home. Now, when she said this, it honestly took me a second to comprehend what was even said because this was so far out of left field. But my husband didn't even need that second. He looked them dead in the eyes and said no. My in-laws started telling us things like, "You guys don't need all that house. You guys can move into one of the new neighborhoods in town. I mean, you guys can just build a new house, right?" And I seriously could not believe what I was hearing. I offered to open up our playroom and guest room to them until they could find somewhere to live. I mean, we have an air mattress and the guest room has a full bath, but that was just not good enough to them apparently. So that's when we got up and we just straight up left. As we were leaving, they began yelling after us, saying that we don't care about the children, how family helps family, and that we're being greedy and selfish. And I've got to say, I'm honestly so proud of how we reacted because my first instinct was to go off and say some hurtful things. But instead, we just went home to our house. We love my sister-in-law's kids and obviously we do not want them to be homeless, but they don't need my house at the expense of my own children and family. I don't see why my sister-in-law's family deserves my home. I mean, what about my kids? Now the in-laws are calling and texting, saying that we don't care about the kids, that we are selfish and greedy, and that we're making her homeless. And I'm wondering if maybe we were too quick to say no. So honestly, are we the jerks in this situation? What should we do? Wow, your in-laws and your sister-in-law are being incredibly entitled. They're seriously gonna look at you and be like, "Can you just move out, please? We need your home more than you do." And it's like, lady, what are you talking about? I have a family of my own. I've got kids of my own. Like seriously, why on earth should you give up your home just because your mother-in-law is demanding it? Why can't they give up their home? Like, why is this suddenly on your shoulders? And also, the fact that they're trying to frame this as if you're the reason they're gonna be homeless is so disgusting. You didn't cause them to lose the house. Their ex did that. If they want to be mad at anybody, be mad at them. Like, you didn't do a single thing in this scenario. So honestly, the way they're acting is insane, and you do not deserve this in the slightest, because I am sure there are some kind of options available in the world or the community that you're in that would allow them to find a place to live and move on with their lives. Because for them to just demand your house outright, in my opinion, is completely crazy.
If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories.
Am I the jerk for telling my sister that if she doesn't like the living conditions of my place, then she should just go ahead and leave? Here's what happened. Okay, for starters, she's technically my stepsister, but we're basically sisters and I treat her like one. I'm a 29-year-old female and I live on a tiny farm off the grid in the middle of nowhere. The only livable building on the farm is a small trailer and there's no power. I mean, I have to use a generator just to do anything. On top of that, there is no plumbing. We have 2 kids, an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old, and their father isn't in the picture and won't be until the end of 2032. I'm fine with the lack of basic necessities as I live off the land and I don't need much in general. My kids are homeschooled and I plan to do so until middle school at least. Recently, my 33-year-old stepsister got divorced and evicted from her ex's place. She has 3 kids, 2 5-year-olds and a 3-year-old. She had nowhere to go, so I invited her to live with me. Not even a week had passed, and she started complaining about having to use the outhouse, as well as a lack of water, and the fact that the drinkable water had to be carried from another well in buckets. She also complained that we live far away from any civilization, with the nearest hospital being about 20 miles away, and if anything happens, there is a chance that we won't be able to get there on time. Her biggest complaint, though, was that I asked her to help around the farm with small chores, and that I asked one of her 5-year-olds to bring some water from the well, and I gave them a small bucket. I see nothing wrong with children doing age-appropriate tasks around the the farm, and I was raised the same way until I was 12. So I told her that if she's dissatisfied with the way I live, then she is free to leave. I'm not locking her up to be my slave around the farm. I provided her with free housing and food. Well, she said that I'm trying to use her children for child labor and that I'm endangering her life. We had a nasty verbal fight that ended up with us exchanging some really unsavory words, and now she is still sulking. And right now, I'm wondering if I'm the jerk, because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Honestly, I don't think you're in the wrong here, and I really think your stepsister was kind of out of line. Like seriously, it's just a bucket, and it's not like you're asking for some weird child labor on the farm. You're literally just asking people to pull their weight. Like that is completely understandable. So for your stepsister to freak out like that is so weird. Like you're giving her free housing. Why would she not expect to have to do something just to kind of like make up for getting free housing altogether? And it's not like you're asking that much. Like this really is minor in the long run. And you know what? You're absolutely right as well. If she doesn't like it here, then she can leave. Because truly, no one is forcing her to live there. Am I the jerk for telling my dad that I'm moving out and that I won't be babysitting this summer or any time after that? Because right now, he and his wife are very upset. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've been forced to babysit for my dad and his wife for 5 years for the last 4 summers. The kids are my dad's stepkids who are currently 7, 6, and 5 years old. And no, the kids are 100% not my dad's kids. And trust me, I'm positive they're not his kids either. It doesn't really matter anyways, but I wanted to put that out here because I know the ages would make it appear like at least one could be, but trust me, it's not. My dad was never a very good dad to me. When I was a kid, he was really absent from our house, and he left raising me to my mom and would show up when others were around to make it look good. But he never got involved or cared about me or my life. And actually, the one time I was always sure to see him was on his birthday when he got mom to cook his favorite meal and open up gifts. He never failed to show up when it was about him. My mom got sick when I was 8 years old, and my dad bailed and he filed for divorce. He left me to deal with my dying mom, and unfortunately for her, the divorce didn't go through before she passed, so he was still her husband. He wasn't emotionally present for me then or physically. He would just dump me on a babysitter until I was 11 years old, and then I was seen as old enough to be left alone. When I was 12 years old, he moved in his wife who was still pregnant at the time, and they weren't even married then. They got married when her youngest was about 5 months old, and they told me I was going to level up and be a good big sister to her kids so that they could live their own lives and the kids would have someone to look up to. Then came the forced babysitting during the summer, all summer long. I always tried to find ways out of it, but felt like I had no options, at least no realistic ones. Now, my dad's wife is kind of better than my dad. She isn't directly involved or caring to her kids, but she will often bark at me for not being more sweet to her kids and saying how sad her kids look when I don't interact with them. It's more than what my dad would do, but she's not exactly getting involved with her own kids either. I've been planning for over a year to get out. I turn 18 in May and I graduate a couple of weeks later. Most likely I will go stay with friends on my 18th birthday, and I will totally be gone and never return. I won't babysit, and I know they expected that to happen, and I don't know that they would actually pay for someone else, or if they'd maybe leave the kids without someone watching them. So I decided to tell my dad that I won't be babysitting this summer or at all. In my head, at least if he cares just a little bit, he might just get someone else in. Well, my dad told me that I've been the most consistent person in the kids' lives, and that I'm a jerk for dismissing them like that. He told me that I should be staying and doing what he and his wife want because they put a roof over my head for so long now. He told me I'm going to cost him money by doing this. His wife then started yelling at me for leaving her kids behind and how sad they will be. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk. Your dad and his wife are literally just using you for their own benefit. They only see you as a free babysitter over the summer because not only would they never pay you, but you'll never get anything out of watching those kids in the slightest. Like, do they not see how neglectful they are as parents? I mean, this guy's trying to claim that you're the most consistent person in these kids' lives, but like, shouldn't that be him and his wife? Why should you, as the stepsister, step in and be like the parent in this situation? That doesn't make any sense, and it just sounds like they're being very lazy. And you can almost see the reasons laid out in that last paragraph. He wants you to stick around because you're free labor, and then when you say no, they just guilt trip you just like the wife is doing. And literally, the way that he treated you growing up is just so neglectful. He didn't care about you or your mom in the slightest. So I don't blame you for wanting to move out. These people sound awful, and you definitely don't deserve this. So in my opinion, you are absolutely not the jerk. 2 obnoxious kids come into my store store, demanding every single item they see within reach. And I've honestly never seen kids be more spoiled in my life. Here's what happened. So I worked at Claire's for 8 months. It was a pretty miserable job for many reasons, one of them being that I had to deal with children who made my life a living nightmare, all because mommy and daddy wouldn't buy them the eyeshadow palette shaped like a star. What often made it worse was kids and parents would often get into full-blown screaming matches, and there really is nothing less fun or more awkward than witnessing that. And the situation I'm going to tell you about is the worst case that I've ever been involved in, and honestly, thinking about this one makes me cringe. One day I'm at work and this family comes in. There's a mom, a grandma, a girl who couldn't be more than 6 years old, and a boy who couldn't be more than 5. The mom came in to ask about a problem they had after getting the girl's ears pierced. They had been a little swollen after they had taken the piercings out, and told them that it'd be a good idea to maybe clean them a little more and have her wear the precious metal earrings, which are earrings made of less crappy metal. They go to look at the earrings, and I let them know about our buy 3 get 3 deal on jewelry and hair accessories. Now, our precious metal earrings are expensive, $12 for a pair and $36 for a pack of 3. I usually feel bad telling people that they need to get the expensive ones, so I also usually pointed out the clearance ones. I walked over to the clearance ones and grabbed the 3 precious metal earrings that I saw there. I brought them over to the girl and I showed them to her, and she literally recoiled because she thought they were ugly. I have never seen a kid that age look that judgmental in my life. The family lingers into the regular earrings, and the girl starts begging for a pair of flamingo earrings. She said she needed them because she was dressing like a flamingo for Halloween. Now, get ready for these kids to say the word need a lot, because trust me, that's exactly what they do. Now, the mom wants to get enough things to get the discount, and she actually ended up getting enough items to get it more than once. The girl then gravitated to a tiara and said that she needed it because, and I quote here, "I need it because I can't be a princess without a tiara." This family ended up being in there for maybe about 20 minutes, and it honestly felt a lot longer. The entire time, both kids were hopping around the store, pointing at practically everything and saying, "I need this." Some of it was kind of weird too. We had these Harry Potter minifigure blind bags that quite a few kids wanted, even kids who were a few years too young to read Harry Potter, just because one of the options was a cute orange tabby cat that they wanted. That was clearly one of the things that these kids needed. They spent the better part of the most uncomfortable 20 minutes of my life yelling at their mom and grandma, and wailing every single time they said no to anything. And the mom was getting more pissed off by the minute, but she was still really determined to stay in the store long enough to get things to get that discount. Eventually, the mom is yelling at the kids are still yelling, and the grandma is the only one not yelling, but she still looks stressed out of her mind. And I seriously can't emphasize this enough. It is really awkward to watch parents angrily scolding or arguing with their kids, especially when you're at work and you have to keep on the happy, polite retail worker face and basically act like you're not seeing anything. The mom even started telling the grandma to pick out something for herself because she did not want to buy those kids a single thing. Now, I have never been so happy to see a customer checkout in my life. As the mom is checking out, she sees that the total is really high and asks to remove a few things, and I'm so glad the kids didn't witness that. Claire's brings out the worst in children, and the buy 3 get 3 brings out the worst in the parents. Yeah, I can see that being very frustrating to deal with. There's no way on earth I could work that kind of job because I would not have that kind of patience to act like nothing's happening. I would absolutely want to be that guy to be like, wait a second, what's happening here? Why are we all screaming and yelling over earrings? Or even making some kind of remark about the kids asking for everything. Like, I don't know about you, but I would not be able to keep my mouth shut in that situation. So truly good for the original poster for keeping their cool, because that sounded incredibly obnoxious. Am I the jerk for telling my stepdad that he's inserting himself too much into my engagement? Because right now he feels very upset that I told him off, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 28-year-old female and I got engaged 4 months ago to my fiance Chris. Chris is not his real name. Chris was confronted by my stepdad after we announced our engagement. My stepdad was upset that Chris didn't ask for my hand in marriage or my stepdad's blessing. He told Chris I'm his only little girl and it would be the most respectful thing to both of us to ask his permission and his blessing. Well, Chris told him that it's an outdated concept, and if we were to do the whole blessing thing, we would visit my dad's grave to ask. My stepdad told him that he's the dad he would ask. He's the father of the bride and he's the future father-in-law. Well, Chris didn't tell me about this right away because he said he had hoped it would blow over and he didn't want me to feel bad about it or for me to deal with stress regarding my stepdad. Last month, my stepdad asked me why I hadn't approached him for money for the wedding and why he wasn't asked directly to give me away away and perform the father-daughter dance. He told me he was starting to feel very overlooked as the father of the bride, and he was not okay with that. He told me this is very big for him, as I'm the only girl that he has that's getting married and all that other stuff. Now, for a bit of background, my dad passed away when I was 6 years old, and my mom married my stepdad when I was about 10 years old. I knew him for just shy of a year when he and my mom got married. I was my mom and dad's only child, and my stepdad brought 3 sons into the marriage, and he and my mom have 3 more sons together. I respect that my stepdad wanted to be my dad and committed to being a dad to me, but he is very old-fashioned and he is not my dad. I don't really love him. I find him overbearing and misogynistic at the best of times, and he did not like that I wanted to go to college for game design and development. He thought that was very masculine, and also never liked me playing video games in the first place. He was very into the idea of a daughter though, and often tried to take me to father-daughter balls that he would look up. I actually gave him the money back that he saved me for college and spent my dad's money because I wasn't going to let him dictate my future, and my dad did support me. He wrote a letter saying he hoped I followed my dreams of making games, and I only read that when I gained access to the money that he left me. I told my stepdad that he wasn't walking me down the aisle or performing any kind of father-daughter dance with me. I told him I wasn't looking for his money, and he told me that's what the father of the bride does and that he wants to do it. He told me it's tradition, but I said it was not traditional and that I was not having a traditional wedding. A few days after, we rehashed the same stuff. I found out about his confronting Chris then, and I went to my stepdad and told him he had no right. But he argued as my dad, he has every right. I told him though that he's not my dad and he's inserting himself way too much and cannot make demands for my wedding or engagement. He told me to say that to him after almost 20 years is disgusting, and he has been my dad far longer than my donor ever was. And when I say donor, he's referring to my father who's passed away. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Your dad is being very obnoxious and very rude. He's inserting himself into the middle of you getting married, and he's trying to make these weird demands that you just don't want to deal with. Like, I understand him wanting to be involved and be this father figure in your life, but it seems like he's almost like trying to force it. Like he's almost trying to make you be the daughter to his father. But like, that's not how this works. He can't just make you his daughter, and he also can't force you to call him your dad. And speaking of which, for him to call your dad who passed away as your donor, that is really disgusting and really cruel. It's not fair for him to act like that, and you really do not deserve that. So in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk, because I know if I was in your shoes, I would feel the exact same way. My coworkers intentionally got me in trouble with management, and now my manager is threatening to take me off the schedule, even though I was just trying to be a team player. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I started at this restaurant a few months ago, and it initially took some getting used to, as I haven't served in many years. My coworkers were really helpful in the beginning, but with time started to get annoyed with me because I would ask questions. I was supposed to get 3 manager training shifts when I started, which never happened, so my training ended up falling on whoever I was working with that night. I have definitely gotten a handle on the job since then, but some of that tension towards me has still lingered. I try really hard to be friends with my coworkers, and it's important to me to feel like we are a team, despite the competitiveness of serving. But I feel like people are kind of two-faced, and it's really hard to get a read on people. Sometimes I want to keep my head down and do my own thing, but my manager pointed this out to me and asked me to interact with everyone more. Anyways, with that said, lately it's been so slow a lot of the times, meaning that one server will go home early so that the other can make whatever money they can with the few tables that come in. In the winter, that was acceptable, but recently my manager has been cracking down on this. The thing is, my coworkers encourage me to leave early almost every single shift, especially when it's slow, so I end up feeling awkward if I don't. My manager found out that I left early the other day and basically sent me a text ready to take me off the schedule and saying I don't act like I want to be there. Now, I really do want to keep this job, and I feel bad for letting him down. We are going to sit down next week and talk it over, but I need to know if anyone has any advice or a similar experience working in restaurants. It feels very dog eat dog, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, first and foremost, why on earth would you leave early? All because your coworkers are telling you to do that. Like, it really seems like your coworkers are just trying to get you in trouble with management, and you should have not listened to anything they said to you. Like, you do realize they did that on purpose, right? They clearly don't like you because you were new and asking them questions, and now it's pretty clear to me at least that they're trying to get rid of you in some kind of way. And here's the other thing that I really think you need to figure out. I think you need to realize that just because someone's a coworker doesn't mean that they're your friend, especially based based on what you've described, because these people do not sound like good people at all. So in my opinion, I think it's time to listen to your management and follow exactly what they want you to do. Because leaving early just because your coworkers say that you can do it, in my opinion, is a surefire way just to get fired. An entitled jerk steals things right off of my desk at my office, even though he was contracted to clean the office in the first place. But fortunately for me, I had cameras set up to catch him in the act, proving to everybody that this guy's a thief in the office, resulting in him eventually being fired. Here's what happened. So roughly 6 or 7 years ago, I worked as a lead IT engineer at a very large multinational company. It was a pretty good job that I thoroughly enjoyed, if I'm being completely honest. Although us IT guys had a secure room for storage and preparation of all the spare laptops and monitors, we worked out in an open plan area outside the secure room. As we worked in IT, we often had spare cables and mice, tool sets, and other such bits laying around on our desk area. Most of these were company owned, but a few items here and there were personal possessions, as is often the case in the office. One of the personal items I owned was a nice miniature screwdriver set. The tools supplied by the company were not the greatest. I mean, they gave us a basic and ordinary screwdriver set, so I brought in my own nice mini set that I'd been given as a present the year before. It makes my work easier, as it's far more precise and is better at removing the tiny screws you've got inside laptops. Most of the time, it's locked away in my desk drawer. Anyways, every now and then, a cable or a spare mouse would disappear. And honestly, this is no biggie. They're a company-owned kit, and it's probably someone just coming in early, finding they've forgotten their phone charging cable, popping down to the IT area to ask for a new one only to find nobody is there, and then just grabbing a spare that's laying around. Usually, we just order a few more spares here and there to cover it off, and I never worry too much about it. But then, one day my USB-powered cup warmer disappeared. Now, this annoyed me as I owned it. I couldn't just order a replacement from the company's suppliers, and it certainly had not been taken just to replace a faulty or lost peripheral. I asked around my colleagues, and a couple of them had also had personal items disappear here and there. Now, as someone who hates the injustice of theft, I decided to do something about it. I did a bit of research and found a piece of free software that can detect movement in the footage from a webcam and then record a short video of it. It can also record from multiple cameras simultaneously. I didn't want the usual green LED on an active webcam to give anything away, so I took a couple of old or used webcams that had been returned to the IT store. I disassembled them with my trusty screwdriver set and then stuck blue tack over the little active LED light before reassembling them. I set them up on top of my two monitors such that one was pointing downwards towards my desk and the second was pointing towards the entrance area of our cubicles. Now, I should explain that the desks were the usual square office desks with a curved chunk missing from one corner where you sat at. They were arranged with the walls and windows on one side, with 4 desks in an open square with cupboards in between them, such that your back faced the other 3 desks in the cube. Then finally, a single gap entrance between the desks facing into the corridor. My desk was towards the window, meaning that anyone wanting to reach my desk had to walk through the one gap just to get there. I configured the software not to record during the day when I was working, but only after hours it would record in 20-second blocks every time it detected movement. Now, for a couple of months, all goes relatively smoothly. I see one worker grab a spare mouse one morning in the footage, and honestly, that's about it. It really was no big deal. Then, one day, I got a job to replace a broken keyboard on a laptop. I go to dig out my little screwdriver set, but it's nowhere to be found. Eventually, I carry out the repair with my company-owned toolkit, but then I start looking through the recorded footage from my webcam setup. And then just like that, a few days ago, my little toolkit is sitting there on my desk. I must have forgotten to put it away in my office drawer, so I fast-forwarded to a video from the following morning, and it had disappeared. There's a few other files there from in between, and usually, the cameras just get triggered by a security guard passing by on his rounds of the building, or sometimes it's the cleaners emptying bins or something like that. But then I see it. The company hired a window cleaning firm to clean the insides of the windows, roughly once every other month. I see the guy cleaning windows and then moving on. 10 minutes later, he returns carrying a cloth, and I watch the footage as he gently drapes the cloth over my toolkit, then picks it back up, toolkit and all, before walking away from the scene of the crime. And that's when I knew I had him. I promptly sent the footage to the chief of the security team, who I know quite well. 5 minutes later, he's at my desk. He's not entirely thrilled about my unauthorized surveillance, which he did subsequently ask me to remove, but he is far more interested about what my little web cameras had captured. I'm asked not to share the footage with anyone else, and he reassures me that the matter is being investigated and that senior management
management are involved. Eventually, things go quiet for a little bit, but a few weeks later, he calls by my desk and presents me a brand new miniature screwdriver set. I pressed him for details, and he basically told me the whole story. The window cleaning firm that the company used for this office was a local family-owned firm. My company called the window cleaning firm and suspended the contract pending an investigation due to theft by one of their workers. The owner of the window cleaning firm promptly came around to investigate, and upon seeing my footage, he recognized the guy as a newer employee they had hired a few months prior. The suspension of the contract was a big deal for this little family-owned firm, as this was a large building with probably about 1,000 staff inside of it, and hence quite an important contract for them financially. The owner of the window cleaning firm agreed to promptly fire the thief and buy a replacement toolkit for me, and in return, my company agreed to lift the suspension and allow the window cleaning firm to resume their work. Now, to this day, I wonder if it was really worth it for the thief. I mean, they lost their job over a $20 screwdriver set. Of course, for my company, it was a much bigger deal. People like that could potentially steal important documentation or other private company information. Either way, allowing a thief on site was a huge no-no for them. So in short, don't steal, especially from IT guys who have the full view of a webcam at their disposal. Wow, that is seriously messed up that the window cleaning guy decided to steal from you. Like, first of all, this guy picked it up like he was trying to avoid fingerprints. Like, he wrapped it up in the cloth and then picked it up instead of picking it up with his hands. Like, does this guy have some kind of shady past or what? Like, what's going on? And personally, I seriously cannot stand people who steal. They are some of the most despicable people on planet Earth to me, and I just can't agree with taking someone else's property for your own gain. So good for you for trapping this guy and figuring out who was stealing all your stuff off your desk, because clearly this guy's been doing this for a while, and I'm willing to bet that all the stuff that's been missing from your office probably stemmed back to that guy stealing it in the first place. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for going off on my sister-in-law for not paying me back, as well as bragging about having my own place? Because right now she is calling me a jerk, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I have a sister-in-law who's 31 and a brother who's 28. I'm an 18-year-old female, and in 2022, they lost their home due to a wildfire. I was already helping them financially starting at the age of 16. When they lost their home, I let them borrow $400 alone at this point, and also started a GoFundMe and raised $5,000 for them to be able to get a place. Well, they decided to blow that money on vacations and fast food while living in a hotel with 3 children. I was at this point saving up for a car, and my brother tried to gaslight me in saying that if I cared for my niece and nephews, I would send them all of my car funds, which totaled to about $3,000. That way they could get a place for their kids. But I told them no. They got a camper and have been living there ever since. They both refused to work and bum off of their family, and after I turned 18, I refused to send them any more money, and that's when they really started to treat me even more like garbage. I decided to calculate how much they owed me, and it was about $600, but because earlier in 2023, I needed a new phone, they sent me a 2020 iPhone SE. I decided to subtract the price it was when it first came out, so they only owed me about $400. I told them they needed to pay me back, but they just argued with me, saying they only owed me about $120 and refused to pay me any money back. Ever since I've gone no contact with them, I have gotten my own apartment. My sister-in-law has sent a single dollar a day and would call me a whale each time. It got to the point where I decided to brag about how I'm 18 years old with my own place, and yet they're 28 and 31 without a place or a job. I work full-time as a daycare teacher, and my sister-in-law argued it's hard work with 3 kids, but I just know that there's people out there that would say otherwise. My sister-in-law called me a jerk for demanding her to pay me back, especially when she's homeless and jobless with 3 kids. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk for asking for that money back, especially since it really seems like they were using you in the first place. I do kind of think it was weird and petty to be like, yeah, I'm 18 and I've got my own place. What are you doing with your life? But I think considering the way they've been treating you, it seems like this is the tip of the iceberg when it comes to conflict between you and these people. But for them to be like, yeah, give us all your money so we can take care of our kids. Like, that's weird, and that is absolutely uncalled for. Like, you would have been a fool to give up that $3,000, and thankfully you saw them for exactly what they are. Like, you've already done so much for them, and yes, it is a tragedy that they lost their house in a fire, but the way they're living their life now is honestly unacceptable, so I don't really blame you for trying to put them in their place. I feel very wronged and bitter about my parents and the way they were celebrating my failure when I first went to college. But ever since I got my grades up, they've been cold and indifferent, not showing any enthusiasm about my academic success, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. When I decided to leave for college, my parents were unhappy with my decision. However, when I joined another college and found happiness in my new academic path, they began pressuring me to change my major. They belittled my chosen field and claimed it had no future prospects. What upset me the most was not their lack of faith in my choices, but rather their reaction when I struggled academically. During times when my grades were not satisfactory, my parents would express their disappointment by emphasizing the financial burden I was placing on them. They made me feel like a failure and constantly reminded me of how much money they were losing because of my college education. This added to my already mounting pressure and sense of inadequacy. Oddly enough, when I made the decision to change my major and subsequently achieved outstanding grades, my parents appeared cold and indifferent. They did not show any enthusiasm or support for my academic success. However, when I received poor grades, they would shame me and compare me to other people, making me feel even worse about myself. The situation reached its lowest point when I left college with a GPA of 1.04. Throughout this entire journey, my parents never seemed genuinely happy or proud of my accomplishments. Their inconsistent reactions and lack of encouragement have deeply affected me emotionally, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, your parents sound like really toxic people. It seems like they would rather see you fail than ever try to celebrate your success, and that's exactly what should have happened here. They should have celebrated you doing well instead of trying to celebrate your downfall. Like seriously, what's wrong with these people? If I had a kid in college and they were happy in the college major they were pursuing and they were finally getting good grades, I would celebrate that. I wouldn't be cold and indifferent. And by the way, the only reason they're acting that way is because you literally proved them wrong. So honestly, I'm so sorry they treated you that way, and hopefully you can move forward and be happy despite their terrible treatment. My mother-in-law is trying to convince my wife that our 10-year marriage has been a failure, and at this point, I'm considering cutting her out of our lives entirely, but I'm really not sure if that's the right call. Here's what happened. I've been with my wife for 14 years, and since the very beginning, her mother has repeatedly compared me to her oldest son, and not surprisingly, accused me of never being able to live up to the shining example of a man that he is. It started our marriage off on a bad foot. My wife was privy to her tendency to do this, and for a while went low contact with her mom until we had settled down a bit into our new life together. Along the way, my mother-in-law has had moments where she's gotten frustrated with where we are in life. Her only checklist for success for us is having children and buying a home. Well, it turns out infertility and working in New York City make both of those things very difficult. We've gone through several options, but we haven't been successful. It's taken an enormous emotional toll on us, especially coming from an ethno-religious community where infertility is a scarlet letter. We're also not interested in owning a home at this stage, but I guess context just evades her. Recently, my wife went to see her mom, and they eventually got into an argument where my mother-in-law was trying to convince my wife that our 10 years of marriage have been an utter failure with nothing to show for it, namely no kids and no house, comparing us again to her eldest son who has 3 kids and a home. Also, as a side note, he cheated on and divorced his wife, although she never mentions that detail when comparing me. Now, when this happened, my wife was shaken, and for the past 2 weeks has been noticeably depressed. She's normally a bubbly and joyous person, so honestly, I'm at my wit's end. From the beginning, she has constantly cast our marriage in the shadow of other people and has provided no understanding of our situation. I'm close to demanding that we cut ties with her entirely, but I'm honestly not sure if that's the right call. Wow, your mother-in-law sounds like an awful human being. The fact that she's trying to compare you to her oldest son, who cheated and divorced his wife, by the way, in my opinion is so ironic. It's like she's keeping out so many details that, I don't know, might be really important to the story, but also context really does matter. You've hit the nail on the head. Like, she doesn't care at all about your situation or the fact that you two are trying your best. Like, you're both having trouble having kids, and you both live in New York City, so I'm sure your housing situation is already really tiny as it is. And now, as a result of a visit that you thought would go well, your wife, who is usually bubbly and joyous, is completely depressed. Like, that is not fair for her or for anybody involved. So in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would not feel any remorse about cutting this mother-in-law off entirely. She literally is trying to come after your marriage at this point. Like, I don't know about you, but she's either bored with life or she really is trying to ruin your life. And in my opinion, opinion, I don't think you or your wife deserves that in the slightest. An entitled Karen and her husband want me to control the behavior of customers, all because they didn't get what they want, and I'm honestly blown away by their entitlement. Here's what happened. So I work at a large storage facility, and we provide carts for customers to move their goods as a courtesy and keep them evenly distributed between the two entrances to the building, and they're available on a first-come, first-served basis. As I was doing my daily facility inspection, I got a call from my coworker in the office asking me to come speak to a customer because they had an angry confrontation with another customer. My immediate reaction was, so what? Mediating disputes between customers is not in my job description. Regardless, I took the elevator down to the back entrance where the argument occurred, and I talked to the customer back there. She explained they were using all of the carts to transfer goods between their new unit and their old unit, and when another customer had asked for one they currently had goods on, she let them know that there were more carts in the front of the facility. Well, this triggered the person asking enough to start screaming the phrase, "Why should I have to?" which is featured prominently in the story. The screaming lady's husband got aggressive, so the cart-using customer's husband asserted himself without violence, and the other guy decided to go to the office and make it our problem. I get to the office and I ask the Karens what happened, and immediately I recognize the husband as someone that has thrown a tantrum over there not being a cart available for him immediately when he arrived just a few months ago. They share their side of the story, which also features the words, "Well, why should I have to?" as well as the same events, but casting my other customer and her husband as dangerous, crazy people. The male Karen repeatedly states that he will do whatever he has to protect his wife, but I let him know if anyone does violence on the property, they will be evicted and reported to the police. He keeps saying that it's my responsibility as the facility manager to control my customers, and that if something happened to them, I would be the one at fault. But I disagreed with him strenuously, stating that I can't control anyone and I am not responsible for the behavior of the customers. They ended up leaving in a huff, saying that I'm not a real manager, but as they were leaving, I let them know that there are more carts in the front if they still needed one. Yeah, people like this are so confusing. They want you to not only take their side, but also believe the garbage they're spewing out. Seriously, just get a cart from the front. Don't try to take someone else's just because you're too lazy to get one. And for them to frame these people as crazy psychopaths, or even imply that they're gonna get violent, all under the guise of, oh man, I gotta protect my wife. That, in my opinion, should have been the last straw to get these people evicted, because they've already been a problem in the past. And honestly, if I ran that facility, I would definitely be kicking them out. Am I the jerk for wanting to end a family tradition that excludes one child? Because right now, I'm really worried about my daughter, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So every April, my wife's family holds a family reunion. They don't celebrate holidays together often, so they go all out for these by renting out a hall and getting catering, and literally putting on the works. The only weird event at these reunions is a clothing swap between women of the family. For whatever reason, when my wife and her sisters all had daughters close in age, they decided a long time ago that this was the best way to do family hand-me-downs. All of the women in my wife's family ended up being very short, so they all wear similar sizes, so it's always kind of worked out, with a 70-30 gender split, and the only men in the family being myself, my brother-in-law, and my sons from a previous relationship. This swap meet is the main event. They make it a whole show about it. It's incredibly boring from the outside, so my boys and I always head out early if we go out at all. Now, this would be a non-issue if it weren't for my daughter. For the sake of the story, we'll call her Katie. Katie is not her real name. Katie is my wife and I's baby, and she ended up taking after my side of the family. We are a taller family, or at least just not super short. So by the time she was 11 years old, she started coming back with nothing from those parties. The first time, I assumed that she was just being picky until I realized that she was starting to be bigger than her older sisters and cousins, and had outgrown any size that they would wear. My wife thought she needed to realize that not everything was for everyone, and to just have fun being there. Last year, she started having body image issues, thinking that she was fat and needed to go on a diet, and now I'm thinking having this event is feeding into it. This year is going to be a massive deal as my mother-in-law is going into a nursing home, and she is downsizing. She was so into fashion that she has an entire storage unit full, so this is going to be a ton of stuff. I'm starting to think the reunion shouldn't have a clothing swap at all, and all of that should be done privately at another time. I mean, family shouldn't be about a fashion show. My wife thinks that's ridiculous, and our daughter is just having typical teenage problems that will go away on their own. But if she's so bothered, she can just not go or stay with the boys. But I don't think that's right. This is mainly a girls' reunion, and it's not like there's anything else for an alternative for her to share in because they don't really get rid of accessories or anything else. It's all just clothing. This event is starting to get mean and exclusionary, and it needs to end. I'm trying my best to make them see sense, but I'm honestly getting nothing but arguments. So honestly, am I really in the wrong here? Because I seriously am not sure what to do. Honestly, I don't think you're the jerk at all. Like, why would your daughter go to this event, especially if she's so much taller than everybody else? Like, it doesn't make any sense in the slightest, and making her go really seems counterintuitive. Like, it just doesn't compute as to why she would show up in the first place. She's much taller than the other side of her family, so maybe instead of forcing her to go to this event and keep up this stupid tradition that is clearly going to exclude her, just take her out shopping that day or something like that. That way she can have some kind of clothing coming out of this event, because obviously nothing's going to fit her because she's taller than everybody else. So no, you are definitely not the jerk, and the fact that nobody else is understanding that, in my opinion, is really unfortunate. An entitled Karen demands that her daughter be brought into our corporate training video that we're trying to shoot, refusing to take no for an answer, as well as grinding our entire production down to a screeching halt. So in a desperate measure to get this lady out of our hair, we decide to trick her in the best way we could possibly think of on the spot. And I'm honestly so blown away that things worked out the way that they did. Here's what happened. So I was part of a team shooting a short corporate training video. It was on visitor policies for front office workers of a regional healthcare operation. It showcased various scenarios involving visitors that might come up on the job and the do's and don'ts in each case. Now, no one was chasing an Oscar here, but it was still quite high budget and professional. Well, except for one exception. The corporation had granted us access to a front office area at one of their locations to use as a set, but they hadn't thought to notify all the practitioners in the building that they would be shooting video. It was a weekend, when they're typically closed for business, so I guess they took for granted things would be shut down, but there are dozens of private offices of employees in these buildings, and a couple people chose to work weekends. As a result, their patients and clients kept streaming through the lobby while we tried to do this. For the most part, it didn't actually matter. Those who even noticed us at all could see we were filming and at worst took a couple of pictures and then left us well enough alone. That is, until Karen and Karen Jr. breezed in. For the sake of the story, we'll call them Wanda and Wanda Jr., because my mother is named Karen and she's a wonderful woman. And my ex-wife is named Wanda, and this is exactly the type of stuff that she would get up to. So anyways, we were shooting a scenario in which a third-party contractor approaches the desk attempting to gain entry. Someone like a delivery person or a maintenance worker, but in this case, we were using a water guy. There's an elaborate procedure that's supposed to be demonstrated in the video. It takes several excruciating shots to get correct. We're finally approaching the finish line when suddenly we hear someone start to talk. "Oh my god, are you guys making a movie? My daughter is an actress. She'd be great in any movie. Give her any line to read, any part, and she will nail it. What kind of movie is it?" We had a PA who was assigned to play defense against anything like this, especially once we realized the building was semi-open to the public, but things had been going so smooth for so long that he took his eye off the ball. A crew member pulled up to the side and patiently explained, "Sorry ma'am, no movie. It's just a corporate thing. You can go that way to your appointment." They were trying to be polite, but clearly signaling that they needed to move along. Well, as you might guess, that went in one ear and then immediately out the other. She grabbed Wanda Jr. and dragged her over, practically shrieking at this point. She said, "Oh good, no, that's so good. This'll be priceless for her reel. And you'd be lucky to have her, trust me. Any part, just name any part and she'll blow it out of the water. You should see her do Titanic actually. Just name the part, she's ready." Now, Wanda Jr. looked anything but ready. She looked exhausted, mortified, and a little bit nervous. I didn't know if she was scared by the confrontation or at the premise of being given a role. Not that it mattered. The content of these videos is dictated by powers that be. We can't just go adding anything. A more senior crew member tried to reason with them at this point, realizing the whole ordeal was really beginning to hold us up. He emphasized to Wanda, "This is a training video for this business. That means it will only ever be seen by people who actually work here, and not even every single one of them. There isn't even a credit section, so please." He then gestured broadly at our operation that had ground to a halt, hoping the point had been made. This lady then says, "Okay, so just put her in as an extra or something like that. She doesn't have to speak. God, you're all so sensitive." Now, you almost had to admire her dedication to this point, but she wasn't advocating for herself. She was just speaking on behalf of her daughter, who was cowering in a corner a ways away, seemingly totally uninterested by any of this. A few of us got together and discussed our next steps. We decided to just continue shooting and hope for the best. So we tried to do that, and you can probably guess what happened next. Wanda dragged Wanda Jr. back over and tried to plop her down in the middle of the shot. We reset at a slightly different angle and rolled again. Wanda herself made a ton of noise and did everything possible to be disruptive. We got together in a small group again, and we discussed waiting and coming back to finish another day, but we were already severely behind schedule for that day, so we would likely need an entire extra day of filming if we went this route, which was not logistically feasible. We then discussed calling the authorities. We did have a film permit, but that doesn't go so long a ways in keeping strangers out as you'd think it does, and it isn't necessarily enough to even get the police out at all. Finally, we didn't want to generate any negative buzz for the company. We film corporate-style videos often, and we're not keen on a reputation of being hostile to clients or creating hostile scenes inside public-facing areas. Then the PA had quite the idea. An upcoming scene was what to do when emergency services seek to enter the building, such as a fireman or a police officer. And as such, we had a cop costume and an actor primed and ready to play a cop all just laying around. We only had to cross our fingers that Wanda and Junior did not notice the cop had a same-day side hustle as a water guy. So it honestly took a little bit. Wanda planted her feet the entire time, taking glamour shots of Junior in front of our modest camera equipment. Then the supposed cop arrived. We recast him as a security guard so no one would go to jail for impersonating some public official. He swaggered up to the front desk and declared, "Someone contacted security, will need access," which is actually also more or less his first line. A few of us were nervous he'd forgotten the mission and defaulted to his practice content. But no, the desk lady was unflappable. Everyone was on their game. The desk lady said, "Thank you, sir. Was it an emergency or non-emergency call?" Which is also essentially the desk lady's first line. And at this point, we were all really holding our breath. One of the senior crew members stepped in and said, "Yes, hi, I'm the one that called you." He then briefly explains that we're trying to film as well as what's going on. Now, our supposed officer nodded and told Wanda quite authoritatively that she needs to move along. This section of the building is closed to the public and there's absolutely no loitering. But she just kept continuing her glamour shots. The security guard continued, "Photo and video are also strictly prohibited. That's a HIPAA violation. I might need to report that." Well, Wanda huffed and puffed and pouted, but she didn't know what to say. The best she could come up with was saying that she had an appointment. She then said, "I can be here if I want to." Well, our security guard responded by saying, "No ma'am, you can be in the office where you had your appointment. And if they've asked you to leave, then you have to go. The rest of the building is closed except for traffic to and from the private offices." Think of it this way. If I have an appointment in Dr. Smith's office, am I then entitled to go to Dr. Jones' office just because it's in the same building? Or am I entitled to stay in Dr. Smith's office for the rest of my life because I had an appointment there? He stared blankly at Wanda, who threw a stapler off the desk in her fury. The security guard said, "Oh no, there will be none of that. Let's go before I have to escalate the matter." So we all held our breath, and we simply couldn't believe it when she finally left the building. Now, this was all going on during the writers and actors strike, so she yelled out as she left that she's going to report us to the unions as scabs, as if our corporate training video in the middle of America was a union acting job. While it was frustrating to be off schedule, I mostly feel bad for Wanda Jr., and I honestly hope she gets to spend plenty of alone time with Dad to even out the crazy. Wow, that's a really funny way to get rid of a Karen who's clearly bothering you when you're trying to work. Like seriously, it's just a corporate video. Your daughter's not going to be a star for being an extra in some video that nobody's going to watch. But with all that considered, this seriously was a crazy gamble, because either this was going to pay off big time or it's going to flop entirely. But honestly, this story is incredibly funny, and I find it incredibly hilarious that she fell for the security guard in the first place. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My boyfriend doesn't want my 6-year-old child with ADHD at family events, and after he uninvited my son to one of these events at the last second, I am now questioning our relationship as a whole. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. I'm a 28-year-old female, and I've been dating my boyfriend for around 8 months. We met through mutual friends, and he has known since the day we met that I have a child from my previous marriage. The two of them have met and get along really well. When it's the three of us, there are no issues at all. My boyfriend stays over my place 1 to 2 nights a week, and it's important to mention that my son has severe ADHD that we are just starting to medicate him for. He struggles in social situations, especially when there are a lot of people he doesn't know or if he's in an unfamiliar environment. Once he's overstimulated, we usually have to leave an event. My boyfriend lives with his parents and 2 siblings also in their 20s. He He's saving up for a house and is hoping to be buying one soon. His parents' house is not exactly kid-friendly. There are no kids in his extended family at all, and they have a lot of decorations that are breakable around the house. They also enjoy quiet and privacy. They have pretty strict rules, even though the kids are all adults. There have been a couple of occasions where my boyfriend has politely uninvited me to things when I tell him my son is coming with me. This has happened with a Super Bowl party and a couple of family dinners with his parents and his aunts and uncles. He says it's not personal, and I need to remember that it's not his house. He says that certain things kids are just not invited to. And yes, they know I have a child because we talk about him all the time. Though I understand where he's coming from, I told him it's still hurtful to hear. Well, fast forward to this week. My boyfriend invited me to his parents' surprise anniversary party that him and his siblings are planning. He said all of his extended family are going, as well as all of his parents' business partners. I asked him if my son was invited this time, and he said to me, of course he is. Well, the day of the party, I FaceTimed my boyfriend and I asked him what time that we should be there. He said he wasn't sure if my son should come along unless I could promise that he would behave. Well, I was hesitant to bring him anyways because I know that he would be the only child there. But he was basically uninviting me again unless I brought my son to a babysitter. This now has me questioning the entire relationship altogether. Should I take this as a sign that this is not a good fit for me? Or am I just being too sensitive? The logical part of me is thinking that he is right, and there are some events my child is just not ready for. But the emotional part of me is hurt, and it feels like the right person should accept this as a package deal no matter what. What should I do? Honestly, first and foremost, to answer your question, yes, I think there are some events that kids should not attend. Like, there really are some situations where no, it would not be appropriate for kids to be at this place at all. And I'm willing to bet that this party very quickly became that kind of event. Also, I don't take this as your boyfriend being like, ew, I don't want your son there. But rather, I think he was just looking out for you and your son. He knows your son can get a little bit overstimulated, especially with the two of you still figuring out his ADHD. So maybe there's a silver lining here where he's like, yes, I do care about him, but this might not be the best place for him to be. It really doesn't sound like there was any malice attached to what he was saying. So in my opinion, I don't see this as being like a bad matchup or anything like that, but instead, I kind of think this might be him just cluing into what's going on. And yes, I totally agree with you. He did kind of drop this on you last second, and in my opinion, that is really not appropriate, but I think that's something you can at least discuss moving forward, because in my opinion, I don't think that this is completely a deal breaker. Am I the jerk for asking a hotel employee how they knew my name? Because right now, I'm really shaken up after my last interaction with them, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm staying in a hotel in Dublin City for the weekend, and I have a very late flight home tomorrow evening. Around an hour ago, I went to reception to inquire if they could keep my luggage safe after checkout and before my flight. There were two men at the reception that I spoke to. One was the young male receptionist who checked me in yesterday, and the other was an older man in his 50s, but he was not wearing the hotel uniform. The receptionist said, yes, that'll be no problem. And I smiled and said, that's wonderful. Then the older man said to me, what time's your flight? And then they said my name. I said the time, and then I realized that he knew my name, which surprised me, so I said, oh, that's funny. How did you know my name? I don't think I told you that. Now, I honestly believe my tone was more curious and confused, since it had caught me off guard. I honestly thought maybe I was wearing something with my name on it, and I even looked down just to see. The receptionist said, oh, I don't think he called you by your name. Maybe he said madam. I then said, oh, really? Oh, my mistake. Honestly, I was kind of relieved, if not a little bit embarrassed, but then the older man chimed in. He said, no, she's right. I know your name. It's my job to know everything and everyone here. I reply with a nervous laugh. I say, oh, that's a little bit weird. I expected he was going to say just kidding, or that he's the manager or something like that, and he just prides himself on knowing everybody's names. I eventually clocked that it all seemed a bit weird, since he didn't try to make it obvious that he was joking. The older man then asked me what room I'm in. I was caught up on how he knew my name, but wouldn't say how he knew it, so I started to feel a little bit worried. Out of instinct, I asked him, why do you want to know that? I'm really confused. I believe I said this timidly, but with a bit of anxiety, as I remember scanning both their faces as I said it. The receptionist interjects and smiles as if to reassure me. I think he just wants to offer you a late checkout. This makes me feel a little bit better, so I say something along the lines of, oh, I see, that's very nice of you, but I guess I'm just a little bit weirded out by the name thing. Sorry, I've had a long day. The older man then says to me, well, I was going to, but since you're being such a jerk, I won't do that now. Except he didn't call me a jerk. Now, when he said this really caught me off guard. Out of instinct, I said, I'm sorry, sorry, I think this has gone the wrong way, but it just confused me that we've never met and you know my name somehow. He then doubled down and repeats a similar line about how he just wanted to be nice, but I had to go and be such a jerk about it. And for context, he is not smiling or laughing at all. I can tell from the receptionist's face that he is shocked. I took a breath and then I slowly and calmly said, okay, well, I think that's it. I really don't know what to do with that kind of language. And then I gesture widely in his direction. I don't appreciate it and I don't have anything else to say. I go to leave and they both call me back, but I just raise my hand and I say, no, I'm done. And then I left the hotel for some air. Now, it's really important to know, he referred to me by my first name and not my surname. There's no photo ID associated with my reservation. Neither of them touched the computer between the time I got off the lift to the time that they realized I was standing in front of them. If they had pulled up my reservation, they would have known my room number. And finally, the older man was not there yesterday when I checked in. I remember because I noticed how all the staff looked really young. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, this screams very suspicious. There's no way on earth I would ever feel comfortable with someone doing something like that. Like seriously, that is super creepy. You're telling me this random man in his 50s suddenly just knows your name out of nowhere for no reason and is getting upset because you're questioning him on that? Like seriously, that's like creepy behavior. I really hope you got some names and went to a manager because that kind of behavior is so unacceptable. Like seriously, all this guy had to do was be like, oh yeah, I pulled up your record and I can see your first name. Instead of being like, ooh, hello there. I know your first name. Give me your room number. Like, no, buddy, that's creepy. If I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing and been like, wait a second, I can't get past this. How on earth do you know my name? So no, you are definitely not the jerk, and I really hope you escalated this to a much higher authority, because the way this guy was acting was really creepy, and you do not deserve to get treated like that. Am I the jerk for enforcing a rule in my house with the support of my roommate that we do not want any vaping in our apartment? Because after I told my sister about this new rule, she got incredibly upset, furious that she can't vape in my apartment anymore, claiming that going through withdrawal would be absolutely horrible. So at this point, I honestly feel horrible and I really now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I have an apartment with one other roommate for school. We both hate the smell of things like vapes and cigarettes, and I also personally hate anything with nicotine because of how addictive it is. I've seen what it does to people, and personally, I just don't want that stuff in my house. Since none of our friends smoke cigarettes or vape, we never really made a rule about it. Well, my spring break was last week, and my younger sister came to visit for a weekend. And as you might be guessing based on the story, she kept hitting her vape. It was like it was just second nature to her to grab the thing and take a hit. I asked her to stop because the smell was bothering me, and while she did apologize, she kept getting defensive about hitting it so much because she can't just go cold turkey for a weekend. And honestly, that's fair. While I've never experienced withdrawal from nicotine, I have experienced some withdrawals from antidepressants, and it's horrible. I would never wish that on anybody. But because it was still bothering me, I went to my roommate about adding no vaping to our official house rules. Now, he was cool with it because we both don't like having that stuff in our space. And since we agreed to that, I texted my sister. The text was brief, and I just explained that if she came to visit again this semester, she could not vape here anymore. Well, to put it bluntly, she blew up at me about it. She reminded me that withdrawal is horrible, so she can't just give up for a weekend to see me. She also said that it's not that big of a deal and that she'll just use it in the bathroom if it bugs me that much. And you know what? Her reaction just honestly made me want to reinforce this rule even further. But at the same time, I feel bad because I'm basically forcing her to stop doing something just because I don't like it. I'm not trying to be some guardian angel helping people end their nicotine addiction, nor am I asking for her to stop vaping completely. I don't want to not allow my sister into my apartment over some flavored air. It honestly just comes down to the fact that I don't want that trash in my apartment. I later went to some friends and their responses are mixed. A few of my friends said stuff along the lines of how I'm just setting a boundary, similar to someone who doesn't drink asking his guests not to drink only while they're in his home, but other friends are saying that I'm trying to force my opinions on vaping onto my sister, or I'm trying to force her to quit vaping altogether. But seriously, that is not what I want to do though. We're both adults, and while I'm not happy that she vapes, it's not my place to act all high and mighty. She is her own person, and she can do whatever she wants. I just don't want some things to happen in my house. Now, my sister is more than welcome to step outside, but I don't think that's an option because I'm worried it's unreasonable since I live on the 5th floor of my building. So honestly, am I the jerk for trying to enforce this kind of rule in my house? What should I do? Honestly, in my opinion, I don't think this is outside of anything that would be unreasonable in someone else's home. Like, think about it. This is your place that you live in. You and your roommate came to this conclusion together, and you both have decided that no, you don't want vaping to happen in the house. I don't think that's unreasonable at all, and honestly, I think that's a completely normal thing to ask of someone. For me, though, the biggest red flag is the fact that she started screaming at you about this. I mean, she seriously does not like the fact that you're trying to say, hey, I don't want this in my house, which kind of leads me to believe that yes, this is an addiction of some kind. She clearly has like some kind of dependency on the vaping to try and like function as a human being, and the fact that she can't stop for even just a little bit and not do this for an extended period of time is kind of worrying to me. It really screams to me that she does have a problem with this, and it really seems like this might be a little bit deeper than what you might be expecting. And if that's the case, then maybe she shouldn't visit until she has this under control. Or if she does come to your house, then maybe she actually should step outside, try and get herself under control with all the withdrawal symptoms that she's experiencing, and then she can come back up to your apartment. But in my opinion, if I'm being completely honest, and maybe I'm the jerk in this situation, but it really seems like she's just trying to guilt trip you to try and get her way. And that part alone is like really inappropriate, because at the end of the day, this is your house. And if you don't want any vaping to happen inside of your house, then honestly, she can either respect that or she can just not visit. And in my opinion, based on the way she's acting, it might be better for her to stay home instead of coming to your apartment. An entitled Karen tries to get away with stealing products from our store, constantly trying to work the system by claiming that our products are expired, so we might as well give it to her at a discount. And I'm honestly so sick of this Karen, and I really hope she never comes in ever again. Here's what happened. So before I get started, I need to give some small context, just so you know how this happened and understand what the woman's thought process was. I'm one of the leading cashiers at a grocery store chain. I've worked here for many years now, and I've seen a variety of people, including thieves, so I can pick up on it quite easy, and I have some tactics on how to discourage thieves at the register. One of the most common ways people steal at my store is using the sales tag. When an item goes on sale, it's because it's close to the expiration date. We tape on a sales sticker and put it on the sticker shelf. Sometimes people try to peel off the stickers and place them on more expensive items. These aren't automatic stickers and must be inputted manually by the cashier, which does usually deter the thief because the computer will prompt manager permission if a sale input is unusually large for the item. Sometimes I'll do this on a normal item if the price is raised before the sticker is updated. In this case, we compare the barcodes in the item and the machine, we check that the name matches, and then confirm the price raise. If everything checks out, we'll call over a manager to allow the discount sale. The story begins with a woman learning about these discounts and trying to take advantage of it. I'm a primary cashier at the store, which means I'm up at the register the most. Nobody else is at the cash registers unless I specifically request more cashiers. So I encountered this woman one-on-one multiple times and didn't think anything of it. The first time I met her, she brought me 2 loaves of bread, one normal one and one with a price tag. The first thing she told me before I even scanned them was that the sale item was expired and she wanted a bigger discount than what the sale said. Now, per law, we cannot sell expired items. So I outright told her, no, I'm sorry, but legally I can't sell you this. I can ring up the normal bread, but the date on it is still more than a month out, so this is not eligible for a sale. Well, when I said that, she did not like this, but accepted it and left without buying anything. The next time I saw her was a few days later. She tried the same tactic, so I recognized her quickly. This time, she was trying to buy some vitamins. Again, telling her that I cannot sell an expired item, but the date on the non-sale vitamins was close enough to where I could give a discount. She accepted it, bought the vitamins, and then she left. Well, a few minutes later, she returned to the store while I was in the middle of a large transaction and told me it was a tester bottle and if she could just get a different one. Now, I was a bit frantic at the sudden large order, so to save everybody some time, I give good customer service. I double-checked and confirmed the vitamin inner label was marked as tester, and I made a final judgment. I let her get a different bottle without ringing her up, allowing her to keep the discount price I gave without the item being close to the expiration date. Now, this is something I almost never do, but it was busy that day, and it wouldn't be an overall issue, especially when it was a tester bottle for some reason, which I found odd at the time, the fact that there was even a tester on the shelf, but I wanted to offer something kind. After that, we hired a new cashier, who we will call Kay. Kay is not their real name. She was just starting out and still learning the basics, so I didn't want to overwhelm her. She had just completed basic training on the computers and was out on the floor. While the boss cashier was busy, I would sometimes call her over if she looked a little lost and tell Kay about how to use the register and some tips to make everything just work work a little bit faster. Now, sale theft wasn't one of the topics I had a chance to get to yet, since she was still learning how to apply the sales price at all. This particular day, Kay was at the register while I was working the floor. I had just had multiple tooth extractions the day before, and I was in too much pain to speak to customers all day. Kay was alright taking over and would page other cashiers to come up and help if she was too stressed out and confused. Well, on this day, wouldn't you have guessed it, but a certain familiar woman appeared at Kay's register. She told me this after the fact, so I knew exactly what happened. Again, she had a sale item and a normal item and tried the same method. One was expired and the other wasn't, and she wanted a large discount. Kay was in a panic, not knowing how to handle the situation. She said she had called a manager to tell her what to do, and the woman suddenly got furious. She said that she wanted a big sale and that cashiers have let her do it before, so Kay just needs to give a discount on the expired item. Now, not knowing what to do, Kay rang up the expired item and called up a manager to give a discount on the sales tag. Kay told me she was afraid of the woman suddenly getting angry and didn't know how to say no without sounding rude. I told her that if the woman appears, the best thing to do is confirm the expired item and say that we can't sell anything expired by law. She could have the normal item at full price if the date is good, but not the expired one. Kay looked relieved, and we also relayed the same sentiment to the other cashiers at the store to be on the lookout for this woman. Well, wouldn't you have guessed it, she appeared once again. By this point, we all had an idea of what she was doing, and we were briefed on her tactics, and she came up to my register with her script. She was talking about how she kept finding expired items and had no idea why, but my bet was that she was taking sales tags and moving them around, and also probably hiding items that were close to their expiration date in the very back, just so she could come back later and retrieve them. She had 2 items as always, and of course, one was expired. And I thought to myself, okay, here we go, back to this repeated dance. I confirmed the date and told her that I can't sell an expired item, even at a discount. She pleaded to just give it to her, but I still reiterated that I cannot sell it to her by law. She could have the regular item, but it wouldn't have a discount. She said that she didn't want it if it didn't have a discount, and that I should just ring up the sale and give it to her just like Kay had done before. She said to me, "Why is this always a problem every time I come in here?" Well, I told her that Kay was still learning, and that right now she wasn't speaking to Kay. She was speaking to the current elder cashier who was telling her that I had to refuse a sale on an expired item. The woman then asked for a manager, which I was happy to page. The manager approached the desk and asked what was going on, so I gave her the quick rundown that she wanted to buy an expired item. The manager nodded with me and turned her attention to the woman. She then repeats exactly what I said. They're right, we can't sell expired items for safety reasons. It shouldn't have been on our shelves, and I'm honestly sorry about that. The manager took the expired item and brought it back to the storage room to place in the bad product box. The woman was now fuming by this point. I asked if she wanted to purchase the normal item that she had, and she just said no. She wanted that one, and she didn't want it if it didn't have a sale. I said I was sorry to hear that, but I simply didn't have much else to say. I already knew that she was attempting to manipulate us in some kind of way. She said to me, "You guys had it on the shelf, but I can't buy it. You're the only ones that stock it. I should just get it. It's already expired. I don't care about that. You're not gonna sell it to anybody else. That new cashier earlier let me get one." I responded to her by saying, like I said, that new cashier was new and didn't know what to do. We can get in trouble if we knowingly sell an expired product and somebody gets sick. This woman then said, "I don't care about that. I wouldn't sue you guys if I did. I can't find it anywhere else. I'm a regular. Can't you just do this one thing?" I responded by saying, "No, I'm sorry, I can't do that by law, but I appreciate you coming in as often as you do." The woman then actually asked if there's another manager that she can speak to. She says to me, "It is ridiculous you keep denying me sales. Do you treat everybody like this?" I said to her, "Well, I deny expired item sales every time I see it. I promise that it's not just you." The entitled Karen responded by saying, "Whatever, just forget about it." She finally left without buying anything, but I get the feeling that she's going to be back and try her tactics on another cashier. Unfortunately for her, every staff member in every department has been told about her in some kind of way, so I seriously doubt she's going to get very far. But for the sake of my sanity, I seriously hope I never have to deal with her ever again. Yeah, that entitled Karen was being super obnoxious. Like seriously, she's trying to work the system based on items that she's pulling out the back of the rack that she has clearly hidden back there until it expires, or she's messing with the stickers on the products. Like that's really really weird behavior, and you would think after the first few times of trying this, you would eventually give up. So honestly, good for you for sticking to what you know is right and protecting your own job, because I guarantee you some Karen like this would happily try to get you fired, especially if she got sick after you let this slide just this once. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to adjust my wedding date just so my brother can attend my wedding? Because right now, it really seems like everybody's turning against me, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. My fiance and I have been engaged for over a year, and we finally set our wedding date 6 months ago. We've been planning this day down to the last detail, from the venue to the guest list, making sure everything is perfect. Our families were all on board, and everything seemed like smooth sailing until my brother threw a wrench in the works. He announced that he's been offered an opportunity of a lifetime to work abroad. It's a great chance for him, and we're all happy, but the problem is the start date for his new job is a week before my wedding. And now he's asking me to move my wedding so he can attend both the ceremony and his job orientation. Now, adjusting the wedding date isn't nearly as simple as he makes it out to be. We've already paid non-refundable deposits, and rescheduling would not only be a logistical nightmare, but can also mean losing a significant amount of money. We've chosen our date based on several factors, like venue availability, and to make sure that many of our loved ones can attend as possible. When I explained this to him, he accused me of being inflexible and not considering how important it is for him to have this job opportunity. My parents are siding with him, saying it wouldn't hurt to look into changing the date, but I feel like they're being unfairly pressured over something that was planned well in advance. So honestly, am I the jerk for refusing to change my wedding date? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. No, you are not the jerk, and I think your brother is out of his mind if he thinks it's appropriate for him to make this kind of request. Like seriously, this is not okay. You've put down a lot of money to make this wedding happen. So for him to be like, wow, why are you not thinking about me? This is like a really good opportunity for me. You just don't understand how important this job is for me. Well, clearly your brother doesn't care about how important your wedding is for you. You've done all this legwork to get this wedding ready, and now he's saying you need to change your stuff around just to fit his schedule. That, in my opinion, is completely unreasonable. And if he really wants to still be in attendance for this wedding, then he should probably jump on Zoom or something like that just to see the wedding take place. Like, why are you responsible for changing everything around just because he can't attend? That seems incredibly selfish, and in my opinion, I don't think that you're the problem in this scenario. Am I the jerk for taking my grandchildren to Disney for the first time without their mother, as well as refusing to apologize when they confronted me about it? Because right now, my daughter-in-law is furious with me, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I recently babysat my grandchildren for a period of 4 nights and 5 days, so my son and his wife could attend a wedding in Mexico and spend a few days on vacation. They approached me since her mother would not be available, and I initially said I wasn't comfortable with that. It seemed like a long time to watch the kids, and she has point blank told me that the woman's family is more important than the man's. So I was irritated that I was being asked and not her mother, but I will admit that I did give in when my son became very emotional, but I felt and feel like they were being very manipulative. While I had the kids, I was invited to a birthday at Epcot, and I really wanted to go. It didn't even occur to me to run it by my son or my daughter-in-law, as I had the kids for an extended period of time, and obviously they knew they would be going where I went. My daughter-in-law had previously mentioned wanting to save up for Disney, but she has said that about a lot of things, and never made me aware it was something super special to her. Also, it was Epcot. It's not like I took them to Magic Kingdom, and they had some magical moment of seeing their favorite character. When they returned and found out, my daughter-in-law was furious and burst into tears. She actually said that I stole one of her kids first, and then she called me entitled. To be honest, I didn't react well to being called entitled, especially when she was the one who had previously demanded that I babysit her kids. My son asked me to apologize as she was distraught over missing her first Disney trip, but I declined and I asked them to leave. My son reached out again and said that I should have asked for something that big, and his wife somehow feels robbed. I know she's a huge Disney person, but it was Epcot, not quintessential Disney, and I don't feel like I should have had to miss out on a birthday party that I wanted to attend. I told my son that I am not apologizing for anything, and maybe they should think about how they made me feel when they didn't respect my initial no. And with that, my son asked me to post this this online because he feels the internet is going to show me the error of my ways. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? For starters, your son and his wife absolutely manipulated you into watching their kids for a week. They imposed those kids on you and more or less strong-armed you into watching them even though you really didn't want to do it for that long. And the grandmother of this story has it right. It's only Epcot. This isn't actually Disney. Like, it's not the real Disney World experience. So for this daughter-in-law to suddenly just be so emotional and crying about all of this, honestly, in my opinion, is just another one of their manipulation tactics. Like, they're just trying to make you feel guilty about a birthday party that you clearly had every intention of going to. And here's the thing, you were still watching the kids. They came along with you just fine, they were safe, and you were watching them the entire time. It's not like you just left them alone to go to a birthday party. I'm willing to bet that they were attached to your hip like the entire time. Also, I'm just gonna say it, Disney adults are incredibly weird, and it sounds like the daughter-in-law is 100% a weird Disney adult. And I'm not talking about people who are like fans of Disney, because that's an entirely different and normal thing. This is instead an adult who makes Disney their entire personality. And based on this reaction from the daughter-in-law, it really seems like she's one of those people. And with that in mind, she deserves absolutely no apology. She can pout, she can whine, she can do whatever she wants. But seriously, this is not that big of a deal. But what do you think? Leave a comment down below. Do you think the grandma of this story is in the wrong for taking their kids to a birthday party at Epcot? Or do you think this really wasn't that big of a deal and that the parents are absolutely overreacting? Leave a comment down below. We would love to hear what you have to say. Am I the jerk for being too hard on my dad by saying that he let me down when he chose to be married over what was best for me? Because right now I feel like I'm at a crossroads and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my dad and I started therapy 3 weeks ago, and last week during our third session, I opened up bluntly about how I feel like my dad let me down and failed me by prioritizing being married and his own happiness. This was not the first time I tried speaking openly to my dad about this, but it is the first time that he said he appeared willing to listen, and the first time he took the harm it was doing to our relationship seriously. Now, let me explain. My mom passed away when I was just a baby, and my dad was a single dad until I was about 4 years old. It was then that he met my stepmom, who is his wife, by the name of Sharon. Sharon is not her real name. She was a divorced mom with a 9-year-old son and an 8-year-old daughter. They got married when I was 5 years old, and trust me when I say this, Sharon's kids never liked me. They always hated me. When my dad and Sharon first got married, I thought of them as my siblings and I loved them totally, but they were really mean to me. They'd say they hated me, that everybody hated me, and that I should just leave. They encouraged me to run away because nobody would miss me. They said I would never be their sister or their family, and I was a weirdo for calling them my siblings. Well, Sharon noticed this more than my dad, but I used to tell my dad, and when things got bad, I asked if we could just leave. But he'd always try and reassure me, but was very dismissive of how much it was hurting me. He told me we couldn't leave because Sharon was his wife, and we are all a family now, and you can't just leave family. Sharon only said anything when her kids made me cry. I have 2 half-siblings from my dad and Sharon, and I was so excited when they were born, and I bonded with them, and I loved helping with them and playing with them. But then my step-siblings decided to use them against me, and they were older, and Sharon would let them do more. And eventually, they told her half-siblings that if they wanted to do cool stuff with them, they had to say no to playing with me, and eventually, rejecting me became the normal thing. My younger siblings would repeat a lot of what my step-siblings would say to me. This continued even after my step-siblings moved out, because they would take our younger siblings out, or they would visit them and bring them gifts. From year to year, I've been withdrawn and I just stopped trying. I don't try to do anything with my younger siblings, I don't hang out with dad like I used to, and my focus is just on moving out. My dad started to notice late last year, and he sent me to a therapist and then decided family therapy was needed for the 2 of us. And this is when last week happened. My dad looked really shocked at first and he was apologetic. After we got home, Sharon asked me why I had been so hard on my dad. My dad and Sharon argued about it, and I spent the rest of last week trying to be alone with my thoughts. Our next session is tomorrow. Sharon apologized for saying what she did, but reiterated that she feels like I handled it badly. My dad tried to talk to me since the appointment, but I do not know how to talk to him anymore without a therapist present. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? This is really awful because it seems like Sharon basically knew how bad her kids were treating you, and she didn't do anything to try and make the situation better. Like seriously, that is so uncalled for, it's not even funny. funny. Not to mention the fact that your dad just turned a blind eye all the time over it. Like, that honestly is so unacceptable, and I seriously just can't imagine growing up in that kind of circumstance. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay for my stepdaughter's tuition, all because she never liked me? Because right now she is calling me out, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I married my husband 6 years ago, and we've been together for about 8 years. He has 2 children. He has a son who's 20 years old and a daughter who's 19 years old, who we will call Emily. Emily is not her real name. I have a daughter who's 9 years old, and I was a widow when I met my husband. Emily had severe issues with her father getting married again, while her brother got along very well with me and my daughter, and he is the best older brother out there. Emily, on the other hand, did not like me, and she treated my daughter very badly, to the point where she almost never left my arms when her sister was home. When Emily was 15, she was permanently moved to live with her mother. My deceased husband left me a small fortune when he passed that I never touched since I had a good job, and I never wanted anything more. So last year, I decided to help pay for my stepson's tuition, and I am planning to do the same with my daughter. Well, my stepdaughter is very angry now, and she is calling me a jerk. But honestly, am I? I never had a good relationship with her. She always hated me, and I don't think she's become a good person, and honestly, I would rather leave more for my daughter than pay for my ungrateful stepdaughter. My husband is sad because he thinks that I'm being unjust, and I'm really sad about it, but I still don't feel like I'm the jerk. So honestly, am I in the wrong in this situation? What should I do? I don't think you're the jerk at all, because she has no claim over your money. She treated you like garbage. She hated you from the get-go, and she didn't even give you a chance. It doesn't even sound like you were a bad stepmother when she was growing up. Like, it literally just sounds like she decided that she doesn't like you, and then no matter how hard you tried, she still treated you and your daughter like garbage. So in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because I feel she's reaping exactly what she sowed. And if she's unhappy with the result, then she should have been a better person earlier in her life. A scary, thieving bully demands that I take him home in order to give him my fundraising earnings. So I decide to maliciously comply, leading him directly to my neighbor, who just so happens to be a former gang member, who puts my bully in his place in a beautiful way. Here's what happened. So I was in middle school in the 90s. I loved growing up then, and even though there were gangs in my area, I generally avoided trouble. One of my classes had this big field trip planned, and they had us selling chocolates to raise money for our trip. I was pretty good at it, and I was selling at a good rate. I would take the public transportation bus to school, and my stop was about 2 blocks from my home. I got off my stop one day with my box of chocolates, and there was this older kid, probably 16 or 17, who was pretty big for his age, just hanging out right there. He saw me and came towards me. The guy is very clearly a gangbanger. We call him Peso, and he comes up to me and says, "Hey, where you from?" Now, he was asking what gang I was from. It's not the first time I get challenged like this, so I just reply by saying, "I'm not in a gang, man. I'm just a junior high kid." Peso looks at my box of chocolates and takes it from me. He says to me, "What's this?" I tell him it's nothing and it's something for school. He opens the box and sees a bunch of dollars in there. He grabs the bills, which is maybe $15, which is my sale for the day, and takes a bunch of chocolates as well. "Tomorrow, you're gonna give me $20 more. If you don't, we're gonna have a real problem." I walk away feeling scared and really mad. I realize I'm gonna have to pay back the lost money for my birthday money, and I definitely did not want to give this guy any more money. I think about it, and I decide I'll get off at a later bus stop from now on, opting to just walk a little bit more just to avoid this guy. And when the next day rolls around, this is what I do. I stuff my box in my backpack just in case, and I exit about 2 stops later. I don't see the guy, and I think I have solved my problem. Then I get to the liquor store a block away from my home, and who do I see but this overgrown idiot Peso. "Hey man, you didn't forget about me, did you?" I said, "Look man, I don't have any money right now. I don't even have my chocolates. I left them at home." Now, I really shouldn't have said that. "Okay, let's go to your house. You're gonna give me the money or something else if you don't got it." I began getting nervous. My mom is at work and my grandma is home. I definitely don't want to bring him home with her there. I glance at him and notice the tattoos on his arms. And at this point, I saw the perfect opportunity for malicious compliance.
I told him that I don't think that's a good idea. I then said, why don't you just let me go, man? Peso then grabs me by the collar and says, I tell you what to do and you do it. You understand? So I nod my head and I tell him to follow me. Now, it's time to give just a little bit of background. The neighbor that lived in the house next to mine was a veteran of one of the biggest, most notorious gangs in my city. He was in his 40s and a really chill dude. He loved my grandma because she would often share plates of food she made with him and his wife. And he was fond of me because I taught his 8-year-old boy how to play baseball. His son had a disability, a problem with one of his legs. So most other kids wouldn't play with him, but I often did. Let's call my neighbor OG. OG always had a bunch of guys over at his house. He made sure they never caused any problems, and they were all respectful towards my family in particular. Now, back to Peso. The tattoos on his arms is when I realized he was in the same gang as OG. I have a big smile on my face as I'm walking home, and Peso asked me, why are you smiling, idiot? I say, no reason, and I keep walking home. As we get closer, I see a bunch of guys hanging out at OG's house. Peso narrows his eyes, then smiles as he recognizes some of the guys. We get to OG's house, and Peso says, wait here, let me talk to my homies. OG is sitting on his porch, and Peso starts greeting some of the guys and then heads towards OG, greeting him in a reverential manner. OG notices me and says my name. Hey, what's up? Peso turns to look at me and I say, Peso told me to wait here. I have to go home and give him money. OG then stands up and says, why do you have to give him money? I say, because he told me yesterday at my bus stop that the $15 in chocolate that he took from me wasn't enough, and I had to give him more today. Peso begins to speak. You know this kid, OG? OG gives him the scariest look I've ever seen and tells him to shut up. OG then looks back at me. Is this from the chocolates you are selling? I say, yes. OG then asks me how many chocolates I have left to sell. I say about 50, and he tells me not to worry. Peso is gonna pay me for the 50 I have left, plus 20 for the day before, and an extra 50 for my trouble. He tells me to keep whatever else I sell. He then tells me to go home, and Peso would be back later with my money. Well, about an hour later, there's a knock at my door. Peso's standing there, and he has an envelope in his hands. He says, here's the 120, little homie. I'm sorry I messed up. Do you have Nintendo? I brought you some games. Now, when he said that, I just stood there stunned, thinking how I never would have guessed that getting robbed had so many benefits. I didn't see Peso too many times after that, but whenever I did, he would wave at me and he never bothered me ever again. Wow, talk about making friends with the right people. That is seriously an insane situation, because who would have thought that your neighbor would somehow be over the guy trying to rob you? And one of the comments in this post itself pretty much put it best. They said that sometimes it pays to have friends in low places. And honestly, I couldn't agree more. So good for the original poster for using their head and getting out of that situation, because I know if I was in their shoes, I would definitely be panicking. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. I found a hidden camera in my bathroom that has been secretly recording me and my 21-year-old niece. And at this point, I'm so disgusted that I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so as the title states, I found a hidden camera in my laundry basket in my restroom. I'm a 30-year-old female and I've been married to my 33-year-old husband for 6 years. We've been together since I was 16 years old, and recently his family, namely his dad, his stepmom, and brother, moved into our 3 bedrooms. Now, I mentioned the number of bedrooms because after his family moved in, 2 months later, my niece and nephew asked to stay with us also, and this is due to their mom leaving the state that we all live in. So my father-in-law and his wife got a room, and my nephew and brother-in-law roomed together as well. So that left my niece rooming with me and my husband. It's a big room and we have our own restroom. Plus, my niece did not want to sleep in the living room and felt comfortable being in the room with my husband and myself. My husband's work schedule is different than mine and my niece. When he gets home, my niece and I are heading to work since we work together. One of the reasons my niece didn't mind rooming with us is because mostly it was just me and my niece that shared the room. He would just have Saturdays off, and my niece and I worked that day, so I'm always in the room with them. So fast forward to this Thursday at like 2 in the morning. I was using the bathroom when I noticed a blue light in my laundry basket which faced the shower. I looked through it and I found a camera attached to a portable charger. Now I was shocked and I was so confused. So I texted my husband asking him what the camera was all about. He looks at the message but doesn't respond. So I call, but I get no answer. So I get the camera, I break it, and I throw it all away. At this point, he writes me saying how I could either leave him or kick him out. I'm so upset by his actions and I'm really creeped out. I kicked him out, but I'm still planning on leaving by May. I only have a part-time job
job, and I started to apply at more jobs for more income. But I'm still going through a downward spiral because I don't know who I married or how to tell my niece that she's been violated. I know he used the camera to watch her, but I don't know how long this has been going on. So I seriously feel so disgusted and I don't know what to do. Yeah, this is really messed up and I would not be taking this lightly. First of all, you need to get that camera out of the trash, get the SD card, and then go to the police. This is very serious and there's no way you should let this slide. Like, it doesn't matter that the niece is an adult. This is highly violating and so unbelievably disgusting. So I know if I was in your shoes, I would be going to the police and being like, hey, this is what's going on. Because what your husband did is absolutely unacceptable, and there is no reason that he should get away with that. My entitled manager demands that I take no more overtime, as she claims that I'm stealing time from the company. But then, not even a month later, she starts complaining that I'm not going the extra mile, denying in front of HR that she ever said I can't do overtime anymore. So I decide to forward some emails over to HR just to put my manager in her place, resulting in her quitting the job less than a year later. Here's what happened. So I've been working at this job for some years when I got a new manager. A month or so into her working there, she came into my office and told me I wasn't allowed to work overtime anymore, and if I have any issue, we can discuss it. The way she said it too, by the way, sounded like she was expecting this to really hurt me. I sent an email to confirm the conversation that we had, and her response basically said, correct, there is no more time theft. Now, I really didn't like that accusation. I usually stayed a little late by 30 minutes at most to finish up projects. A lot of projects come in last minute, and other managers were thankful for my help. So I quit staying to finish projects, and I wouldn't start a new one if there wasn't enough time. No real issues, but honestly, some projects started falling through the cracks. I let the other managers know that my manager told me no more overtime, and I'm just following orders. Fast forward barely a month later, and as I'm leaving for the day, she rushes to me asking if I can work on, and you guessed it, a last-minute project. It's potentially worth millions of dollars. I explained how I've got plans and I'm not about to be a thief. Well, the next day was too quiet. In the afternoon, I get a request to have a meeting with my manager and HR. Usually, you get a written complaint beforehand, so I'm a little taken off guard. I could at least be a little bit prepared. At the meeting, my manager reads off grievances like it's an intervention. She frames it like I have antisocial behavior issues. I'm insubordinate and I don't go the extra mile. If you let her keep going, I wouldn't be surprised if I was somehow to blame for the company not reaching its goals. When she finally finished, and she had to have started writing this the night before and into the next day, I finally asked if it's okay if I have my say. I pointed out a lot was just her opinion, and I'm overall well liked. I always do exactly what she says. However, my manager likes to constantly move projects around while I'm working on them, and I'm not allowed any overtime. She then says that she denies ever saying this, so I forward the email to HR. My manager then starts backtracking that she didn't mean it permanently. HR then takes me off the call for a bit, and when they come back, it's just HR, and I start by saying that I'm not citing anything. They tell me let's agree to disagree, and that this has been one big miscommunication, and they appreciate all the work that I do. I asked to confirm if this was going to be held against me in any way, and they said no. They went on to say that if I can stay late sometimes, that's great, but it's okay that I leave after my 8 hours. Eventually, my manager later quit in less than a year, and honestly, I was very happy to see her go. Okay, the part of this story that really drives me crazy is the fact that the manager actually tried to lie in front of HR that she didn't say explicitly that you can't steal any more time. Like, this is why you have a follow-up email after a meeting with your manager in writing, so you can have this on file, on record, just in case they try to pull this kind of garbage. Like, this is absolutely insane. In my opinion, I think the original poster 100% should have put like a formal complaint in and been like, oh yeah, my manager definitely lied about having a no overtime policy. Because now she's trying to use that against you and be like, wow, you don't go the extra mile. Well, it's like, lady, you took the extra mile away. What are you talking about? It's like they want you to work extra and do all this overtime hours, but they don't want it to count towards your paycheck. So it's like, okay, which one is it? Do I get paid for the overtime, or do you want me to work for free? Because that's definitely not going to happen. So honestly, good for the original poster for having all their ducks in a row. If they didn't have that email at the ready to send to HR, then this really could have been a different conversation, because that manager very clearly wanted to play both sides of the fence. And unfortunately, it would have been at your expense if you didn't have that email. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay for my brother's wedding after he blatantly excluded my wife all over an argument that happened ages ago? Because right now the entire family has turned on me. And at this point, I seriously seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so here's the deal. My brother is getting married, and he's been planning this extravagant wedding that's way beyond his pay grade. He asked me to help out financially, and because we're family, I agreed. I'm not exactly rolling in dough, but I've done okay for myself, and I wanted to support him. Fast forward to last week, and he drops the bomb that my wife isn't invited. His reason, you might ask? His fiance and my wife had a falling out years ago over some really petty nonsense, and they haven't really talked ever since. I told him that's ridiculous. It's water under the bridge, and they're both adults who can handle being at the same event. But he wouldn't budge. He said it was his fiance's day, and she didn't want any negative energy. I argue that it is also his day, and as his brother, I should be there with my wife. It got heated, and I ended up telling him if my wife isn't welcome, then he can forget about my financial help. Now the whole family is blowing up my phone, saying I'm being unreasonable, and that I'm ruining what should have been the happiest day of his life. They're all on his side, saying it's just one day, and my wife can suck it up and stay at home. But I don't see why she should be punished for something so trivial that happened ages ago. So am I the jerk for standing by my wife and pulling my financial support for a wedding that we're being partially excluded from? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. Your brother and his fiance are being completely unreasonable. Like, for starters, it really seems like they're all being super selfish. They really want you to pay for this wedding, but also exclude your wife and for you to be okay with that. If I was in your shoes, I would be upset as well. There's no way I would take that. Also, why do you have to be the one to pay for everything? It seems like they're all ganging up on you, not because they care about your wife showing up to the wedding or not, but because the rest of the family doesn't want to pay for anything with this wedding. Like, it really seems like your extended family is only using this reason as a way to be like, yeah, you have to pay for it. Why would you do that? As if they care about your wife showing up in the slightest. I also completely agree with the original poster when they say that, yeah, they're both adults and they can absolutely both handle being at the same event even though they don't like each other. It's not like the original poster's wife is going to go out of their way to try and ruin anything. Chances are they're going to be in the background and no one's going to even notice them. So no, I don't think you're the jerk. I think your family is being incredibly selfish for assuming that they deserve that money for that wedding. And in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would not only not go to that wedding, but I definitely would not pay for a single thing. My mom's boyfriend is ruining my relationship with my mother. And now, right before my wedding, he's causing drama by refusing to show up, all because my mom told him exactly how I feel about him. And I'm now at a crossroads and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. My mom has been dating David for over 3 years. David is not his real name. There have been red flags since the beginning, and it's gotten worse over time. My sister and I cannot stand him, but my mom is extremely defensive about him and has made it very clear that she will always take his side. Whenever I bring up concerns, she said it's a misunderstanding or his sense of humor and we just don't understand. Before mom and David started dating, my mom was involved in mine and my sister's lives. She was always very involved in her grandchildren's lives and was even planning on building a home on my sister's land so she could live closer and be involved with the grandkids. My mom currently lives 20 minutes away from my sister and I live out of state, about a 4-hour flight away from them. David is just an awful person. My sister and I have tried to be supportive and forgiving and just be happy for my mom, but it's getting impossible to ignore it anymore. Here's just a few of the red flags that we've noticed. He always has an excuse about why my mother can't see the grandkids. I won't go into detail on this part based on the sensitive nature of some of the reasons, but it's always been a huge concern of mine. He's also a loser and a mooch, and most of the time that he's been with my mom, he's been unemployed, meaning that he lives in her house rent-free. He also bullies her. For example, on Christmas, my sister got my mom an Apple Watch, and he started making snide remarks, insulting my mother's intelligence and ability to use the watch. Another one is when my mom cooked her mother's recipe for some food that she liked, and he was insulting the recipe and telling her that she was doing it wrong. He is also in a ton of debt, but the reasons don't make any sense. They range from having a fake cancer diagnosis to his ex-wife, all the way over to his business partner stealing from him. One time when my mom was visiting me in Arizona, he told my mother he had COVID and told her that she wasn't allowed to come home. And this is the home that she owns and he lives in for free. She flew home and gave him a COVID test, and he tested negative. He literally lied to her, and I'm not sure if it was a power play or some kind of attention grab. I also overheard him talking awfully to my mom at my niece's birthday party because he was mad my father was also there. He tried to get my mom to marry him after 10 months of dating so he could get her health insurance. I told my mother I did not approve of that decision, and I'm pretty sure she secretly married him, but I'm honestly not sure. My mother secretly moved him into her house after 6 months of dating and lied to us about it. Once he moved in, he made her get rid of all of her sentimental furniture and artwork, many of which were her late parents. My mother has never lied or hid anything from us before. This is all very new behavior for her. Everything eventually came to a head this weekend. Friday, I flew in for my uncle's funeral, and I only fly home once or twice a year. I was at my sister's house and my mom texted us asking if we had plans for dinner. We told her to come over. We had just ordered family-style Mexican food and would be hanging out. My mom said that we should just eat and she would swing by later. 5 hours go by and we don't hear from her at all. It's now 9:00 p.m. and I remember because my sister has little kids, so 9 p.m. is too late for guests to come over. I texted my mom and I asked why she didn't come. She said she got busy with errands but was on her way. I told her it was too late because the kids were getting ready for bed and having tantrums from being too tired. Yesterday, my mom came to my sister's house and I asked her what errand was more important than having dinner with me, since I never see her anymore. She then told us she went out to dinner with David and got some gas. Then my sister and I explained why we didn't like David and how we feel like my mom doesn't care about our relationships anymore. She doesn't even see her grandkids anymore, and we feel like a low priority, and we are concerned about him being an unhealthy person. I was so hurt and angry that she blew me off for dinner and then tried to hide it, and then she had dinner with him instead. Today at my uncle's funeral, my mom pulled me aside and said she talked to David. She told him our concerns about him being controlling and pulling her away from us, and she started crying and said that he is now refusing to come to my wedding in 2 weeks. I told her that his decision was just proving mine and my sister's point more, and that it was really messed up for him to bail on the wedding and a trip to Arizona. He had committed to a vacation house with my mother and her sisters. I understand him not liking me, but you would think that he would want to be there for my mother to make the day special for her. She has been so excited for the wedding. My mother started yelling at me and told me it's all my fault. She said I'm judgmental and accused me of lying and making up stories about David. I'm honestly so hurt and I've been crying all day. Although I'm relieved he won't be at the wedding to cause drama, I'm honestly deeply offended. And I think he is choosing not to come because he knows it will hurt my mom. She made it clear this is my fault and she is on his side. And now I feel like he will make her cut us out completely. I don't know what to do. I want my mom to be happy, but I can't support this relationship. What should I do? Honestly, it really seems like your mom is in an awful relationship. This guy is a freeloader. He lives in this house rent-free, and he is using your mom. That's the only thing that's happening right now. And that is honestly so tragic because she doesn't deserve that. He bullies her, he talks down to her, he lies to her, he does all these awful things. And yes, he is 100% pulling her away from the family. He doesn't sound like a trustworthy person at all, and I know if I was in your shoes, I would feel the exact same way. Unfortunately, I'm not sure that you can do anything to change her mind. She's stuck in the middle of this, and hopefully one day she can see what's going on and come back around. So in the meantime, if I was in your shoes, I would try to keep things open and just keep inviting her. I would just keep saying that yes, you're welcome and I love you and I want you in my life, because I can only imagine what it's like living with David. That guy sounds absolutely awful, and I can only imagine what your mom goes through on a daily basis. A crazy entitled man assaults my general manager in the middle of our lunch rush, complaining that his eggs are cold and that his wife's nachos are not to their liking. Things got so bad that even customers were trying to get them to calm down while I called the police to try and get this taken care of. And I'm honestly still blown away by their public freakout. Here's what happened. When I first started waiting tables, it was at a Denny's in southern Missouri. It was the only Denny's in like a 50-mile radius, so we had a lot of customers visit from out of the woodwork. It was lunchtime and my shift was nearing an end. I got sat with this couple, and from the minute I greeted them, they had an attitude. Just hateful looks and a harsh tone when ordering. I get their drinks and the woman says that she ordered Dr. Pepper and not a Coke. Now, this is not a big deal. I change out the drink and I go to take their order, and this is when I see that I have Coke written down for her drink. So she definitely ordered a Coke, but whatever. The man looks at me and says his wife is very particular and she needs her food a certain way or she won't eat it. So I think to myself, why are you at Denny's then? She then proceeds to order nachos from Denny's and wants all the toppings in little bowls on the side so she can dress them herself. The man orders some kind of breakfast platter with medium eggs, and as I walk away to put in the order, the woman stops me and asked if the nachos are good. I looked at her straight in the face and I said, well ma'am, they're nachos from Denny's. I get the order in, I go back and I make sure her nachos are made totally deconstructed, and then I move on to my next table while checking in on my other tables and giving refills if needed. I hear my name called and I go back to get this couple's food. The nachos are deconstructed, the eggs eggs are over medium. I think to myself, cool, let's get this done. I dropped off their food, I get them refills, and I ask them if everything looks right. They say yes, and I'm off again. The restaurant is full at this point, and I was actually taking tables in a section that wasn't mine because one of the newer servers just couldn't handle it. So I'm over at this other section, and when I glance across, I notice the couple shooting daggers at me and looking visibly upset. I get whatever I'm doing done, and then I make my way over to their table. They had barely even touched their food. I asked them if everything is tasting all right, and the look I got in return told me that the answer was no. I ask what's wrong with the food, and if there's something else they would rather try. The man then starts laying into me about the nachos, saying they were soggy and inedible. Remember, they're the ones that put them together. I brought the chips and the toppings. He then picked up one of the chips and was like, "Here, eat this," and tried to shove it in my mouth. I told him I did not want to eat his nachos, and that if they were really that bad, I was happy to replace them for another meal. But they are just totally ignoring that offer, not even acknowledging that I'm offering to basically pay for the nachos in order to give them different food. The woman stands up and tells me that a replacement is not the point. The food should be edible when it comes out of the kitchen. I take a step back and I tell her that I totally agree. I'm sorry this happened. And at this point, the only thing I can do is replace or just comp the meal. Now, she was a bigger white lady, probably about 5'10" with box braids, as well as double XL acrylic nails. So when she stood up to me, I backed away and probably looked like a kicked puppy. This lady totally came off as someone that would fight their server over Denny's nachos. I told her about my only other option beyond a comp or a replacement would have to come directly from my manager. So I immediately sent my general manager out to talk to them. She approached the table, and before she got 2 words out, the man stood up and started yelling in her face about how his eggs were cold. Now, as a side note, he's been here with his food for 30 minutes without touching it, so of course it's gonna be cold. Each time my general manager takes a step away from this guy, he takes a step towards her until she's backed into a corner. Then I notice he has something in his hand. I look a little closer and I notice that it's an egg, one of his cold over medium eggs. The man then proceeds to slap her with the egg. At that point, my general manager has already told the guy to leave a bunch of times, and other customers got involved trying to get him to leave. As soon as he touched her, I was calling 911. When he realized that we had called 911 on him and his wife or his girlfriend, they hightailed it out of there. Now, they didn't tip me, but I had other server sections slide me 5s after it all happened. I assume they feel bad for me, but I feel bad for my general manager. If it had been me, I'd never sleep again due to the embarrassment of being slapped by an old man with an over medium egg in front of all of Denny's. This was about 4 years ago, and I never saw those people again. But if I did, like at Walmart or something else, I would definitely recognize them almost immediately. Wow, I literally cannot understand some people. They go into Denny's expecting some like high quality food, but they forget they're eating at Denny's. Denny's, at least in America, is not like the pinnacle of culinary achievement. It's not even that good of food. It's a place you stop at when you're traveling, or it's the middle of the night and you gotta eat somewhere with your friends after like going out and doing something. It's almost never your first option, and it always seems like you're just settling to go to Denny's just to get some kind of food in your system. So for these people to go into a Denny's and act like this, literally pretending like they're Gordon Ramsay dissecting all this food, is absolutely insane to me. Not to mention the fact that they assaulted this manager with an egg. Like seriously, who slaps somebody with an egg all because you're unhappy with your food? You knew where you were eating. You literally came into a Denny's in southern Missouri. Like seriously, you had to know what you're signing up for. So truly, I'm so sorry for the general manager 4 years ago. They absolutely did not deserve that, and hopefully both you and your general manager never have to deal with anything like that ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for being honest about disliking my nephew's name and thus upsetting my sister and her husband? Because right now her husband is calling me out, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my sister gave birth to my nephew in January, and she gave him a name that I dislike, and that name is Philip, and no offense to anybody named Philip. The two of us have always been so close, and we always swore that we would be honest with each other when asked. I mean, that has always been our relationship. We feel it keeps us close and stops hard feelings because if we don't want to hear something, we just don't ask. There has never been a time I didn't want her honesty, so I will ask her anything looking for an honest answer. My sister is a little more sensitive, which there's nothing wrong with that, but I get her not asking everything if she feels like it would hurt her feelings. Well, she asked me what I thought thought of the name, because according to her, I was the only one who didn't comment about loving the name. And I'm not saying every single person she meets compliments the name, just that those in her and her husband's circle absolutely did. So 2 to 3 weeks after my nephew was born, she asked me if I didn't like his name. She said my reaction was very muted and it made her wonder. So I was honest, and I told her that I didn't like the name, but I reassured her that I love my nephew very much. She asked me some more questions that I answered honestly, and I was even open about names I would use for my future child when asked. My sister made a joke that it was weird to find a topic that we were so opposite on, but she was glad that we talked. Now, I didn't think anything more of it, but then a week and a half ago, my sister's husband made a sarcastic remark that he was surprised I would spend money on such a nice gift for my nephew, especially one that has his name on it, when I don't even like the name. My sister told him to stop and apologize for his reaction. He grumbled and she grumbled back at him. Then he got me alone and told me I had made my sister cry when I told her I disliked my nephew's name. He then asked me how I would like it if she said that to me, and I told him I would expect her to be honest if she disliked the name I picked for my future kids, and I asked her the question. I said we don't lie to each other, and it's been that way since we were kids. He said he had no idea what kind of name I would like if I disliked Philip, and if I would dislike the middle name as well, but it would take an awful kind of person to tell a new parent they dislike the name they chose for their child. And he said I broke my sister's heart, which should make me feel so ashamed. I spoke to my sister after that, and I apologized for upsetting her. She wanted to know where I learned it, but answered herself before she finished the question. She apologized to me and admitted that she was upset, but that she should have known better than to ask the question, that I didn't go out of my way to give feedback on the name, and she knows herself better than that. She apologized for her husband again and told me not to listen. But then her husband reached out again and told me my sister is trying to spare my feelings. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, first of all, I don't think you're the jerk for being honest with your sister, but unfortunately, it kind of seems like you upset your brother-in-law. He definitely got caught in the crossfire when it comes to you not liking the name Philip, and it seems like he's way more upset about this than your sister is. And here's the thing, if you have an open communication with your sister about everything, and you guys are like super honest about everything that's going on in your life or anything like that, in my opinion, I think that's fantastic. That's great. But clearly, based on the way your brother-in-law's acting, he was definitely not ready for that. So in my opinion, it doesn't really seem like your sister is that upset, but rather her husband seems to be like determined to cause problems. Like he is really upset that you don't like this name, even though you didn't go out of your way to say anything about the name. So hopefully your sister's husband can like get it together in some kind of way, because clearly this guy is very upset. Am I the jerk for not wanting to invite my mom to live with me after her man broke up with her, leaving her with literally no one in her life? Because right now she is guilt tripping me hard, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. This story also came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. So ever since I remember, we can't live close by my mom without her trying to completely control my life. I'm a 29-year-old female and I grew up in a small village in a non-English country in Europe. As a child, I was not allowed to go further from our house than where I was still visible, which at that age still made sense. She didn't let me choose the high school I went to, even though the one I went to was right next to an art school that I wanted to go to. The community in my school was also terrible. I was always pushed aside, I had no friends and all this other stuff. But by her opinion, it was entirely my fault and not the fact that she didn't let me go to school parties or the weekend activities. I found friends through one of my hobbies and we held meetings on Saturdays. I had to go home by 6 o'clock or she was hysterical and calling me just to shout at me. She even got a hold of a friend's phone number and was calling her if I didn't pick up. Fast forward and I eventually went to university, but I was not allowed to go to the university that I wanted to go to, which was in our capital city, despite the fact that I got accepted there. This is because she wanted me to go to another one in a city that was closer to us. Now, as a fun fact, in our village, there are daily about 8 buses going straight to the capital, and this is about a 1.5 hour trip. Meanwhile, I had to go to a third city, switch buses, and ride another one for another hour to where her choice of university was located. But at least I got to stay at my choice of student hostel. At first, I was happy. I was finally at the university. I had some freedom. Well, or so I thought. She called me every single day, and it didn't matter if I was in class. If she didn't call me, I had to call her. And if I didn't, she was nonstop calling me the next day, with the first line being, "Did you forget something?" And you would think at university you would have fun and go to parties, right? Well, as you could probably guess, I couldn't do that. My dad passed away when I was 14 years old, so the government provided some money to me, which she got into her bank account by the way, and refused to hand it to me except if I went home every single weekend. And she only gave me an account to barely be enough for the week. I had to pay for the student hostel and the bus tickets from this money as well. If I even dared to say that I'd like to stay because there's an event or we have a party or we're having like a board game competition, she would just start drama, which included guilt tripping and emotionally manipulating me. She would say to me, "Oh, I see. You don't need your mother. You don't love me anymore, right? I can just pass away and you just don't even care, right?" And eventually her crying voice was just a basic part of the conversation. She basically forced me home and I couldn't be part of the otherwise awesome community that we had. Otherwise, I hated the university and I left it after a year of struggling and moved overseas. We had a great relationship after that, and I really have to thank the 2,000-kilometer distance for helping with that. 5 years later, during COVID, I moved closer to her, but was still not in our original country. But unfortunately, she lives in this other country too, and a couple of years ago, she claimed that she doesn't want to be alone. She has a partner, but it's like a war zone between them, and they are about to break up. About 5 weeks ago, she went on a 3-week-long medical trip, which second day, her man said that she's not allowed to go back to their flat because he knows that she's not gone for medical reasons, but instead she's gone to cheat on him, which is not true because yes, he does have mental problems. So she claimed that she started to look for available flats, but as I had to realize, she was looking for ones where she could move in with me. I mean, I told her that I'm planning to move from where I live now, but it is a fact that I'll never move in with her. She is simply not good for my mental health, and I told her this the moment I realized she was planning this. For the rest of the time, we barely talked and never about this. Anyways, fast forward to the last day of her trip when she called me crying and screaming while I was at work. She said to me, "You don't even care if your mother ends up on the streets. I was here for 3 weeks and you didn't ever think of offering me to stay at your flat? I can't believe how rude and disgusting you are. I didn't raise you like that." Well, after listening to her cry and huffing about for 5 minutes, I asked her and I said, "Why do I have to offer that? If I know I have a problem, then I'll ask for help, but you didn't do that." She then said to me, "Last time you said you don't want anyone to go to your house, so I don't go if I'm not invited." And then the call was ended. I have to say, at this point with neighbors and friends, we tried to tell her for years now to break up with him and move away, but in her eyes, we were all in the wrong. And yes, I did say that I don't want guests in my house, but it was literally 3 years ago. And she hates the fact that I have 3 cats and a dog in my flat, and if she sits down, she'll be all fuzzy with hair. And trust me, she never missed the opportunity to tell me about it. On the other hand though, for like a year and a half, I have a flatmate that's freshly out of a bad relationship who she is always bad-mouthing. Even today, when I'm writing this, she refused to hand over the 400 euros that someone paid me from our home country for something that I sold there, and she's the only one who still has a bank account there, so it was paid to her, and she was expected to hand me the money. Well, now she's giving me this attitude and requirements to get my own money. It's not too much, but just about the amount to pay my loan and most of my bills for the month. But it's just one of many reasons that she can be angry with me. She hates the fact that I'm single and I have cats, and that I don't want children. I'm an only child and she wants grandchildren. Now, at 18 years old, I told her that I don't like to drive, and she ended up hitting me so hard that I've had problems seeing with my right eye. I also don't want her in my house with my pets that she hates, and they are all scared of her. She makes me anxious, nervous, and I was never enough for her, and she made sure that I knew it. She will be sweet to my friend face to face, and then bad-mouthing her the moment she's not in the same room. But here's the thing, if she had simply asked me to stay at her place until she found a place for herself, I would honestly say okay. I still love her, but I can't stand to physically be too close to her. I can't put up with any more of her garbage right now. I had enough in the last couple of months in my life even without her. I honestly need a break, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, I've got to be honest, that sounds like a massive mistake if you let her move in. Your mom sounds kind of like a narcissist, and she does not sound like a good person at all. Like she was super controlling when you were a kid, she made all these rules even when you were in college, and even to this day, she's always trying to like get money out of you or make you meet some weird requirements just to get money that's yours. Like that's bizarre to me, and I think whoever you sold that stuff to really made a mistake for giving your mom the money, because I really just don't think you're gonna get that back. And that really is just a net negative for you entirely. So with all things considered, I don't think you're the jerk at all for not wanting your mom to live with you in a new place of some kind. Like I really think all the controlling behavior would only come back, and I think she would just revert back to that same person she was when you were a kid. And honestly, honestly, with what you've described, I definitely think that you do not deserve that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for confronting my neighbors about their loud parties? Because they are constantly so loud and they're making me lose so much sleep. But after my most recent interaction with them, they reacted very poorly towards me. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Living in a close-knit apartment complex can be both a blessing and a curse. While it's great to have friendly neighbors, sometimes issues arise that test the boundaries of civility. My recent encounter with my next-door neighbors left me questioning if I had overstepped my bounds. For weeks, my neighbors had been hosting loud parties well into the early hours of the morning. The booming music and loud laughter and constant stream of guests made it impossible for me to get a good night's sleep, especially on weekdays when I had to wake up early for work. After numerous sleepless nights, I decided enough was enough. One Saturday evening, as the noise reached an unbearable level yet again, I mustered up the courage to knock on their door and address the issue. When my neighbor, let's call him Tom, answered the door, he seemed surprised to see me standing there with a frustrated expression. I calmly explained how the noise from their parties was disrupting my sleep and impacting my daily life. I requested that they keep the volume down or consider hosting their gatherings somewhere else. Now, at first, Tom seemed apologetic and promised to be more mindful of the noise in the future. However, as the weeks went by, the loud parties persisted, and it became evident that my polite request has fallen on deaf ears. Frustrated by the lack of improvement, I decided to take a more assertive approach. One evening, when the noise reached an intolerable level yet again, I marched over to their apartment and confronted Tom and his friends directly. My tone was firm as I demanded that they turn down the music and show some consideration for their neighbors. Well, Tom and his friends reacted defensively, accusing me of being uptight and ruining their fun. They argued that they had every right to enjoy themselves in their own home and dismissed my complaints as petty. As I returned to my apartment, I couldn't help but wonder if I'd been too confrontational in my approach. Had I been too quick to escalate the situation, or was I justified in standing up for my rights to peace and quiet? So am I the jerk for challenging my neighbors in the way that I did? What should I do? Let me tell you something. You are not only not the jerk, but your neighbor is absolutely a massive jerk. In most apartment complexes, there's like a designated time where you have to be quiet. Like it's typically in some kind of homeowner's agreement or a contract you have with a building that basically says after like, let's say 10 o'clock p.m., you have to keep the noise down or you will get in trouble. And that trouble usually comes from like fees or having the police called or something like that. So for Tom and his friends to be like, ooh, we have a right to have a party, that in my opinion is completely out of line because the noise they're making is not protected by some kind of right that they think they have. They're literally disturbing the peace and they need to keep it down. And in my opinion, I think you've done way more than most people would have done in this situation. You went up to him the first time and you tried to be nice. Like you really did try to say, hey, could you please just keep it down? It's way too loud and I can't get any sleep. It's bothering me. You tried to be civil and take like a nice approach of some kind just to try and get the message across. But clearly this guy doesn't care about you at all, so he just kept doing that regardless of what you said. And that, in my opinion, is like the biggest red flag you could possibly look for. You tried to be nice and say, hey, could you keep it down? And this guy still did not respect your wishes. So the fact that you went back a second time to be like, guys, I said keep it down, is not only not out of line, but it really is like the final straw before you start calling the police. Which, by the way, is a right that you absolutely have. If he's keeping you up all night every single weekend and not allowing you to get any kind of sleep, that's when I would call the police and be like, look, I've tried to warn this guy, I've got it documented that I tried to warn this guy, and he is still not getting the picture. Because at this point, it's out of your hands. So I know if I was in your shoes and I was dealing with this again in any capacity, I would not only write an email to the apartment complex itself and describe exactly the steps you've taken to quiet down your neighbor, but I would also happily call the police and be like, yeah, I got a noise complaint, my neighbors downstairs are being obnoxious and they won't stop. And then you let them take it from there, because you have every right to get a good night's sleep in your apartment complex. And if your neighbors are being disrespectful of you, then in my opinion, they absolutely deserve to get put in their place. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.